The Powerpuff Girls is one of the most iconic and nostalgic shows from Cartoon Network, a series everyone remembers from their childhood. Created by Craig McCracken, the show originally aired in 1998 and introduced the world to Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, three superpowered kindergarten girls fighting villains and crimes in Townsville. But what if there's more to Townsville's villains than meets the eye? What if almost every enemy the girls face is connected to Professor Utonium in ways you never noticed? From Mojo Jojo's origins as the professor's assistant to the mysterious and terrifying him, there are hidden links that could change how you see the show. Some fans even believe that Chemical X itself might have been part of a darker plan tied to Utonium's past experiments. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might never look at Townsville the same way again. It's nighttime in the city of Townsville, and while everyone else is asleep, a mysterious figure sneaks into the Townsville Museum and steals a dog-headed Anubis bust, along with 2 rubies. The next morning, the Powerpuff Girls arrive to investigate the scene and discover that the Anubial jewels are missing. Meanwhile, high above the city inside an observatory built on an inactive volcano, the thief is revealed to be Mojo Jojo, the evil talking chimpanzee known for his metal helmet and endless repetition. Mojo combines the Anubis head with the Anubial jewels, activating his newest scheme. As the girls fly out to search for clues, they spot a Jack Russell Terrier trapped inside a parked car at Malf's. They rescue the dog, only for it to start talking and begging for help. Shocked, the girls ask who trapped him, but the dog can only bark in reply. Looking around, they realize the entire city has been transformed into dogs. Collies, bull mastiffs, Saint Bernards, and many others now fill the streets. Noticing the Powerpuff signal in the sky, they rush to Townsville Hall, where even the mayor and Ms. Bellum have turned into half-dog versions of themselves. Before the mayor can explain what happened, he starts barking uncontrollably. Realizing who must be behind it, Blossom declares they need to find the professor. But when they reach home, they're too late. Professor Utonium has also turned into a small black and white dog, helplessly barking for water as Mojo's plan takes full effect. The girls give the professor some water, but he only barks again. Annoyed, Buttercup throws a stick, and the professor fetches it. Meanwhile, inside Mojo's observatory, a group of hypnotized muddaloids gather enough jewels to power a huge fire hydrant-shaped machine that will turn the entire world into dogs. Back home, the professor finally grabs his pipe and barks. Blossom realizes he means Mojo Jojo, and the professor confirms with one strong "Bo." The girls immediately fly to the volcano observatory. There, Mojo activates the Anubis head and successfully turns the whole world into dogs. When the girls arrive, he transforms them too, calling them the Powerpups. He orders them to stay, but Blossom quickly notices the Anubis bust is the source of the curse. The only way to stop it is to destroy the bust. They try to throw it off the dome, but Mojo catches it. He then orders his Dobermans to attack, starting a wild dog fight. After defeating them, the girls chase Mojo up the machine. Buttercup spots him standing on the stairs and bites his leg, making him drop the bust. It breaks on his helmet, ending the spell and turning everyone human again. Except Mojo, who becomes a dog. Later at home, the girls ask to keep him, but the professor warns that caring for an evil dog is a big job. After sending the girls to bed, the professor heads to his room, feeling lonely as he looks at the empty side of his bed. The next day at the supermarket, he meets I'm a Good Lady, a charming and polite woman who crosses paths with the family. The girls, hoping their father won't feel lonely anymore, encourage him to go on a date with her. Nervous but excited, the professor agrees. That night, after dressing up, he leaves the mayor to babysit. When he returns home, everyone is asleep on the couch. The next morning, he introduces Ima as their new live-in helper. Once he leaves, however, Ima's sweet act fades away. She starts ordering the girls around and making them clean the house before their superhero patrol. Later that night, the girls sneak out to answer the Powerpuff hotline and return quietly, but Ima catches them. She wakes the professor and blames the girls, who are punished unfairly. Meanwhile, the narrator worries about what's coming. Soon after, Ima sneaks out, and the girls receive a call that Sedusa has stolen the mayor's jewels. They realize Ima and Sedusa are the same person. When she returns home, the girls confront and unmask her. After a short fight, the professor discovers the truth and apologizes. The next morning, a kind woman visits to thank him for catching Sedusa, ending the story on a hopeful note. The Powerpuff Girls are chasing a cockroach named Skippy. The professor catches it and gently reminds the girls that it isn't nice to harm insects. Skippy quickly escapes and returns to his boss, Roach Coach, who is angrily watching the noisy streets of Townsville. When Skippy tells him about the Powerpuff Girls, Roach Coach becomes furious and calls all the cockroaches in his lair for a meeting. He announces that the Powerpuff Girls find them disgusting and urges his fellow cockroaches to fight back and take over the world. Soon, he releases a massive swarm of cockroaches across Townsville, causing chaos everywhere. The mayor calls the girls for help, though Bubbles keeps hanging up before Blossom finally answers. Disgusted but determined, the girls rush to the city to stop the invasion. After a messy chase, they manage to trap all the cockroaches in a giant jar. However, Roach Coach uses a whistle to free them, and the insects combine into one huge cockroach monster with Roach Coach at its core. The girls battle the creature and eventually send it crashing from a great height, destroying it completely. Shocked, Blossom feels guilty until they discover that Roach Coach was actually a robot controlled by a single cockroach. The girls capture it in a small jar and send it to prison. On a bright day in Townsville, 3 criminals named Trevor, Sid, and Bubba rob a bank, but the Powerpuff Girls quickly stop them. Refusing to give up, the robbers move on to a jewelry store, yet the girls defeat them again, even while trapped inside bags. The crooks then kidnap the mayor and Ms. Bellum, but the girls rescue them, ending the chaos once more. Tired of losing, the trio decides to take revenge. Inside Townsville jail, they come up with a sneaky plan, using supplies to make life-sized Powerpuff Girl costumes. Disguised as the heroes, they walk right out of jail and begin robbing banks, stealing jewels, and wrecking the mayor's mansion. Everyone in Townsville believes the Powerpuff Girls have turned bad. Ms. Bellum starts to suspect something is wrong and explains her concern to the mayor, but he misunderstands her and orders the real Powerpuff Girls to be arrested. While in jail, Ms. Bellum secretly informs them about the imposters and tells them that the mayor made a big mistake. The girls then break out of prison to stop the criminals. In the end, they defeat the fake Powerpuff Girls and restore peace. However, the mayor insists the real girls must go back to jail because they broke out earlier. The city of Townsville faces danger when a 3-headed snake beast attacks. The Powerpuff Girls quickly defeat it, but Blossom scolds Buttercup for throwing the monster too hard, causing damage to nearby buildings. Buttercup denies it, claiming Blossom just wants to boss her around. Their arguing upsets Bubbles, who hides in her room and cries. Meanwhile, the villain Him watches from afar, disgusted by the girl's heroism, until he sees Bubbles crying to her stuffed toy, Octi. This gives him a wicked idea. As Blossom and Buttercup continue fighting, Him uses his powers to speak to Bubbles through Octi, pretending to be the toy's voice. At first, Bubbles is shocked, but soon she opens up, crying and sharing her feelings. Him acts kind and gentle, gaining her trust. He then plants ideas in her mind, saying Blossom is too controlling and that Buttercup should be the true leader of the team. The next day, a giant turtle-like monster appears. Blossom orders Bubbles to leave Octi behind, but Him urges her to stand up to Blossom. During the battle, Bubbles tells Buttercup to ignore Blossom's orders and do things her way. Following Him's manipulation, their teamwork collapses, leading to chaos, a near accident involving an elderly man, and reckless destruction while defeating the monster. That night, Blossom and Buttercup's argument over reckless behavior and poor leadership escalates into a physical fight. Their shouting shakes the house until the angry professor storms in and breaks them apart, warning them to stop before things get worse. In her room, Bubbles sobs again, clutching Octi, until the stuffed toy suddenly glows red and grows enormous. Him reveals himself, mocking Bubbles for believing her toy could talk. He tells her that her gullibility caused her sisters to fight and that she blindly obeyed everything Octi said. Horrified and heartbroken, Bubbles watches as him uses the giant Octi to terrorize Townsville. As him wreaks havoc, Bubbles tries to stop him but is quickly overpowered. Her cries for help echo through the city. Hearing her scream, Blossom and Buttercup rush to help but hesitate, still bitter toward each other. When they hear Bubbles again, they finally put their differences aside and unite to save her. The sisters fight together with perfect teamwork, defeating him and destroying the monstrous Octi. After the battle, the girls hug. Blossom and Buttercup apologize to each other, realizing that disagreements shouldn't tear them apart or distract them from protecting Townsville. They agree that whenever things get rough, Bubbles will always remind them what truly matters: being sisters. In Townsville, a group of dim-witted criminals known as the Amoeba Boys attempt to steal an orange from a fruit stand. After Slim refuses to take it, saying that would be stealing, his partners Bossman and Junior scold him for ruining their big plan. While arguing, they spot the Powerpuff Girls flying overhead and decide to commit a real crime to get their attention. Bossman picks up a piece of paper and dramatically throws it on the ground, declaring it as littering. The girls are unimpressed and tell them to try harder before flying away. Frustrated, the Amoeba Boys continue wandering until they see a "Keep off the grass" sign. Thinking it's the perfect crime, they proudly stand on the grass all day and night, even through the rain. By morning, the boys are pale and sick, but don't realize they've caught something contagious. When they sneeze on the fruit stand, they unknowingly spread their illness to the vendor and soon the entire city. At Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, the Powerpuff Girls attend school unaware of the spreading sickness. When the hotline rings, Blossom answers, only to hear that the mayor is feeling ill. She dismisses it as minor, but soon an ice cream truck crashes outside the school. The driver sneezes on the girls, and they realize Townsville is facing something far worse than they imagined. The Powerpuff Girls rush through Townsville, finding chaos everywhere as cars crash and people collapse from sickness. While the girls try to help, the sickly Amoeba Boys continue attempting to commit crimes to impress them, sneezing and coughing all over the place. The girls stay calm at first, but Buttercup eventually loses patience and yells at them for being the worst criminals ever, ordering them to leave town. The boys flee in fear, but soon after the girls begin to cough and realize they've caught the illness too. Blossom suggests they return home to see the professor. At home, the professor, also sick, explains he has isolated the mysterious virus. When Blossom looks under a microscope, she notices it resembles the Amoeba Boys. The professor theorizes that when they stood in the rain all night trying to break the law, their single-celled bodies mutated into a new virus. He tells the girls the cure lies within them, but they recall Buttercup kicked them out of town. Barely able to fly, the weak girls search until they collapse. The Amoeba Boys find them and help them up. Blossom convinces them to return to Townsville, even pretending they'll be locked up for their terrible crimes. The thrilled boys agree after a pitiful fight. Back home, the professor extracts the cure, saving everyone in the city. As he thanks the Amoeba Boys, Bossman sighs, "I told you we should have taken the orange." The Gangrene Gang is bullying kids at the park when the Powerpuff Girls arrive to stop them. Ace, the gang's leader, pretends that Snake didn't mean any harm, and Buttercup, feeling sympathy for him, starts to develop a crush. The next day, during a museum field trip, the girls catch the gang smashing exhibits to get to a soda machine. Blossom and Bubbles attack, but Ace convinces Buttercup that they only wanted a soda and that her sisters are being too harsh. Feeling guilty, Buttercup hides the gang under a carpet to protect them. Before leaving, Ace thanks her and tells her she's welcome to hang out anytime. That night, Buttercup sneaks out to the gang's hideout at the junkyard. Although Snake protests, she punches him in the nose, earning the gang's respect. After she leaves, Ace tells the others that Buttercup is just a tool to help them take over Townsville. Later that night, Buttercup returns, unaware that the gang has lured Blossom and Bubbles into a trap by pretending she's in danger. At the junkyard, the gang captures Blossom and Bubbles and traps them in crushed car cubes, ready to drop them into boiling liquid. Buttercup accidentally discovers them and rushes to the rescue, defeating the gang and furiously beating Ace last. When Blossom asks what happened, Buttercup simply apologizes and hugs her sisters. On a bright and cheerful day in Townsville, the narrator talks about the kind and happy people who live there. However, he mentions that some prefer living far from others, like Fuzzy Lumpkins, a large bear-like hillbilly monster who guards his property fiercely. Fuzzy is seen angrily trying to shoot a leaf and a butterfly for landing on his land. After checking his home to make sure everything is in place, he relaxes and plays his banjo, which he lovingly calls Joe. When a squirrel accidentally steps on his property, Fuzzy chases it all the way into the city. The townspeople try to return his belongings, but he misunderstands and goes on a rampage. Meanwhile, the Powerpuff Girls are fighting over Bubbles' toy Octi until the hotline rings. The mayor calls them downtown, where the city is in ruins from Fuzzy's destruction. The girls question witnesses, but no one can give clear answers. Luckily, Bubbles talks to the same squirrel Fuzzy chased, who leads them to his house. There, Fuzzy attacks them for trespassing. The girls and the squirrel then threaten to burn his banjo, but instead hit him with it, defeating him. In the end, Fuzzy is sent to jail for his rampage, and his cellmate takes Joe, claiming it as his own. As the girls get ready for bed, Blossom reminds them that sleeping early is good for their health, though Buttercup isn't too happy about it. She insists that all the fun happens at night, like parties and dancing, and can't wait to be old enough to stay out late. When she tries to include Bubbles in the talk, Bubbles simply says no, which annoys her. Teasing her sisters, Buttercup tells a scary story about the Boogeyman, a monster who only comes out after dark. Her story frightens Bubbles so much that she screams, making Professor Utonium rush in. Thinking the Boogeyman broke in, Blossom and Bubbles panic, but the professor turns on the lights and assures them that Buttercup was only teasing. Bubbles wishes she were braver, and the professor tells her that everyone gets scared sometimes, even him. He explains that facing your fears is the best way to overcome them. The girls then fall asleep as he leaves the hall light on for Bubbles. Later that night, a strange disco beat starts under their bed. Beneath it, the real Boogeyman works on a glowing machine with his assistant Jerome. Surrounded by partying monsters, he reveals his plan to destroy the sun, so darkness and their party can last forever. With the sun blocked, darkness covers Townsville, letting the Boogeyman's monsters party wildly through the night. They scare people, destroy buildings, and blast loud disco music that keeps the Powerpuff Girls from sleeping. Frustrated, the girls spot the chaos downtown and rush to investigate. They find the entire city turned into a giant nightmare nightclub. Buttercup and Bubbles get caught up in the music, just like Buttercup once dreamed, until a monster sneaks up on them. Buttercup flinches in fear, and both the monster and Bubbles notice the irony. Regaining focus, Buttercup punches the monster into the sky, but more creatures swarm in, starting a massive battle. The girls fight bravely but are soon surrounded. Then the Boogeyman appears, proudly revealing that he created the eternal night so monsters can party forever. Realizing that the disco ball blocking the sun gives the monsters their power, the girls rocket into space to destroy it. The Boogeyman chases them in his weaponized stretch limo. Blossom forms a plan to blast the disco ball's core, but during the fight, Bubbles gets separated. Remembering the professor's advice about facing her fears, she bravely continues forward. Blossom and Buttercup rescue her just in time, and together they destroy the disco ball. As sunlight returns, the monsters vanish, and peace is restored to Townsville. The closing title card commences, and the girls appear in bed in front of the pulsating hearts. The narrator starts the outro, but drifts off joking about the daylight, explaining how the day is saved once again. He laughs, but Blossom shushes him. Buttercup glares at him with one eye. He apologizes, and they go back to sleep. Bubbles is not disturbed one bit. He whispers the rest of the outro, and then bids the viewers good night. The mayor, Ms. Bellum, and the Powerpuff Girls visit an old magic theater that is about to be torn down. Inside, the mayor spots a poster of a magician named Al Lucian, and begins telling the girls about him. He recalls seeing Al's final show when he was their age, calling it one of the most unforgettable performances of his childhood. In a flashback, the mayor remembers how Al invited a little girl named Anne on stage to help with a trick. She was sweet and cheerful, much like the Powerpuff Girls. Al asked for her teddy bear and promised to make it vanish, but when the bear disappeared into dust, Anne became heartbroken. Upset, she pulled down Al's pants, making the audience burst into laughter. Embarrassed and panicking as his props spilled out, Al stumbled backward into an Iron Maiden filled with spikes, accidentally ending his life in front of the horrified crowd. Back in the present, the mayor takes a moment of silence before ordering the demolition of the theater. However, when a wrecking ball strikes the old Iron Maiden, it accidentally releases the magician's spirit. That night, the undead Al Lucian returns as the evil zombie magician, Abracadaver. Using dark magic, he wreaks havoc across Townsville, forcing the mayor to call the Powerpuff Girls for help. Despite their fear, the girls bravely fly toward Abracadaver's location. As soon as they confront him, the villain mistakes Blossom for Anne, the girl who once embarrassed him and caused his tragic accident. Seeking revenge, Abracadaver swings a large pocket watch before Blossom's wide, unblinking eyes, hypnotizing her almost instantly. Buttercup shouts for him to stop and charges forward, punching him hard enough to shatter his body against a stone wall. But even after breaking apart, Abracadaver's disembodied arm keeps Blossom under hypnosis. To make matters worse, the magician quickly reforms and traps Buttercup inside a hacksaw box and Bubbles in a drawstring bag at the bottom of a fish tank. With her sisters trapped, Abracadaver turns back to Blossom, ties her up using a chain of rainbow handkerchiefs, and locks her inside an Iron Maiden that slams shut. The crowd and narrator mourn the girls, believing Blossom is gone for good. But in a shocking twist, Abracadaver suddenly rips himself open to reveal Blossom disguised as him, completely unharmed and free from the spell. Acting fast, she rescues Buttercup and Bubbles, revealing that they had planned this as part of a clever trick. When the smoke clears, the real Abracadaver is found sealed inside the coffin, finally put to rest once again. One morning, the Gangrene Gang decide to amuse themselves by making prank calls to random people in Townsville. They first call the narrator, interrupting his usual introduction. Then Lil Arturo tricks Professor Utonium into believing he has won $10 million, keeping him on the line endlessly. When Big Billy ruins a joke, Ace comes up with a bigger plan, to trick the mayor into leaving City Hall and take control of the Powerpuff hotline. With Grubber's voice impression of Ms. Bellum, the mayor is fooled into attending the supposed grand opening of a new mall. Once the mayor is gone, the gang sneaks into his office and calls the Powerpuff Girls, claiming that Mojo Jojo is up to no good. The girls burst through Mojo's roof and beat him up, only to find he was simply napping. Embarrassed, they return home. The gang calls again, this time saying Fuzzy Lumpkins has gone wild. But Fuzzy too is innocent, just taking a bath. Frustrated, the girls suspect the mayor is joking. When they get a third call about him, they rush over and find him exercising peacefully. Meanwhile, the three villains, Mojo, Fuzzy, and him, realize the truth after speaking and storm City Hall in anger, beating up the terrified gang. When the mayor returns, he calls the girls for help, but they ignore him, thinking it's another prank. On a bright and peaceful day in Townsville, the Powerpuff Girls are busy helping everyone. Rescuing a cat from a tree, getting to school on time, opening a pickle jar for the mayor, and assisting Professor Utonium with his science project. That night, while the city sleeps, Him watches angrily, annoyed by how much the girls help others. He brews a strange gas and spreads it across Townsville, turning the people against the Powerpuff Girls. When Bubbles tries to rescue the same cat, it hisses and claws her. The old lady angrily beats her with a cane. At school, Ms. Keene marks them late, even though they arrived on time, and orders the class to throw things at them. Later, when Blossom helps the mayor open his pickle jar, he suddenly calls a SWAT team to attack the girls, with Ms. Bellum firing the first shot. Confused and hurt, the girls rush home, only to find Professor Utonium has also turned against them. As they flee, the entire town, eyes glowing red, gathers to destroy them. Him appears, revealing his plan. Though overwhelmed, Buttercup convinces her sisters to fight back to save everyone. Together, they break Him's spell and restore peace. At the hospital, the girls apologize, but everyone assures them they're still loved. The narrator, who was also part of the pummeling, says they forgive the girls and calls the nurse for his sponge bath. Townsville faces a huge fire, but before the Powerpuff Girls can act, a new hero arrives and puts it out instantly. The crowd cheers as he introduces himself as Major Man, the crusher of crime and eliminator of evil. Soon, the entire city becomes obsessed with him. He stops robberies, prevents train crashes, and rescues people in need, leaving the girls ignored and disheartened. Even the mayor calls to tell them they've grown apart because he has found someone new to save the city. Later, during a ceremony celebrating Major Man, he accidentally reveals that he somehow knows about every disaster before it happens. This makes the girls suspicious, so they follow him on patrol. They soon discover that he has been faking all his heroics, even kicking a puppy into the street just to save it later. Blossom decides to expose him instead of fighting. Bubbles disguises herself as a monster, and they put their plan into motion. When the fake monster appears, Major Man fails to protect the city. The girls step in and confront him in front of everyone. Under pressure, he admits that he staged every crime to gain fame. The townspeople turn on him as the girls defeat the monster and save the day. Ashamed, Major Man leaves, while Townsville apologizes to the girls for doubting them. At Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, the students are busy making crafts with paste and popsicle sticks. During roll call, Ms. Keene notices that Elmer is acting strangely, eating paste instead of working. Mitch Mitchelson mocks him by calling him a paste eater, and soon the entire class joins in teasing Elmer. Blossom and Bubbles disapprove of the bullying, but Buttercup finds it funny and throws a glob of paste at him, yelling, "Eat this, paste eater!" The paste hits Elmer, making him cry. Ms. Keene scolds Buttercup and demands she apologize, but Buttercup refuses and says Elmer should have ducked. After helping Elmer clean up, Ms. Keene gently tells him that eating paste is not good for him, even though the others were wrong to make fun of him. Feeling hurt, Elmer sits alone during recess and eats from his paste jar. Meanwhile, at a chemical plant, a worker accidentally spills a glowing green toxic substance. When another worker wipes his face with a contaminated rag, it mutates him with tentacles. The rag is later thrown away, and a fly eats the toxic residue, mutating as well. Struggling to fly, the mutated fly lands in Elmer's paste jar. When Elmer eats from it, he swallows the fly too, transforming into a huge, slimy paste monster. Enraged by all the bullying, Elmer loses control and attacks the schoolyard, tossing his classmates around like toys. Buttercup, feeling guilty, tries to stop him alone, but gets pinned to the wall by the paste monster. Blossom and Bubbles hesitate to help because of Buttercup's earlier cruelty, but when Elmer destroys the school and takes Ms. Keene hostage, they rush to the rescue. During the fight, Elmer throws Ms. Keene, covered in paste, at the girls, knocking them into a wall. As he turns his fury toward Townsville, Blossom reminds Buttercup that this all could have been avoided if she had just apologized. Using a heat ray, the girls dry the paste, trapping them, and fly off to stop him. In Townsville, Elmer's rage grows stronger as he knocks down buildings and crushes streets with his sticky body. The girls catch up to him and attack, but the paste traps them again. Blossom pleads with Buttercup to apologize, but she stubbornly insists on fighting. She covers herself in flour and uses her heat vision, but Elmer's body keeps regenerating. Finally, Buttercup admits she was wrong and apologizes. Hearing this, Elmer calms down, forgives her, and releases the girls. Later, Townsville is rebuilt using Elmer's paste. Buttercup thanks him for his help, and Elmer smiles, saying they should stick together. On one of the hottest days in Townsville, the heat is unbearable, sending everyone running for shade. At home, the professor burns himself with coffee while thinking about a theory on force, and Buttercup accidentally burns her sister's mouths by flash cooking oatmeal with her heat ray. During breakfast, Blossom discovers a new ability, Ice Breath, and excitedly tests it by freezing the floor, causing the professor to slip. He explains that each girl has unique powers, like Bubbles speaking Spanish, and makes Blossom promise to only use her new ability when truly needed. At school, the air conditioner breaks, and everyone is forced outside in the scorching sun. When Blossom sees her classmate Mary suffering from heat exhaustion, she uses her ice breath to cool her down. The other kids cheer and beg her for help, and soon she turns the schoolyard into a frosty playground, even sculpting a statue of Ms. Keene. But when Blossom's power backfires during a robbery, freezing the road and helping the criminals escape, she swears off using it again. Later, a giant meteor made of fire heads straight for Townsville. Bubbles and Buttercup try to stop it, but fail. They beg Blossom to break her promise, admitting they were jealous before. Realizing lives are at stake, Blossom uses her ice breath to freeze the meteor so the girls can destroy it. Townsville is saved, but Blossom ends up sneezing fire instead. Townsville faces a massive slug attack, but it turns out to be a training simulation created by Professor Utonium. Buttercup dominates the test while the professor monitors her performance. When she exits the chamber, Bubbles excitedly praises her for how hardcore she was, though the professor quickly shifts focus and calls Bubbles in for her turn. Blossom reminds him to adjust the danger settings, so he lowers it from level 9 to level 2, thinking higher levels are too much for her. Inside the simulation, Bubbles encounters a tiny robot that walks in and says, "Boo, I'm gonna get you." Frustrated with the easy setup, she complains about being underestimated, insisting she's just as tough as her sisters. Mid-sentence, the robot zaps her, and she fails the test. The professor tells her she's not ready, which hurts her pride. That night, when the professor leaves the hall light on for her, Bubbles insists she isn't afraid of the dark. Both he and Buttercup mock her, calling her the scarediest. Determined to prove them wrong, Bubbles sneaks into the lab after everyone sleeps and activates level 11, the highest danger level. Facing 5 giant monsters in an apocalyptic battlefield, she fights brutally, taking hits and drawing blood, but her anger fuels her. In the end, Bubbles defeats them all, roaring that she's hardcore. During recess, the girls play Duck Duck Goose. When Blossom tags Bubbles and mocks her for being slow, Bubbles snaps and slams her into the ground with fury in her eyes. As Blossom tries to calm her down, reminding her it's just a game, the Powerpuff hotline rings. Bubbles answers it aggressively, startling the mayor with her harsh tone. When he nervously explains that he's stuck in a traffic jam, Bubbles vows to fix it and smashes the hotline in anger. At the scene, she discovers the traffic jam is caused by the talking dog, who can't drive. Without hesitation, Bubbles furiously attacks him, stunning Blossom and Buttercup when they arrive. They try to calm her, but Bubbles refuses, declaring she doesn't need them or their Powerpuff way. She storms off, taking justice into her own hands by violently punishing minor offenses like littering and jaywalking. Her rampage draws Mojo Jojo's attention, who kidnaps her and straps her in front of a laser cannon. His plan is to make her cry so her sisters fall into his trap. Bubbles mocks him and resists the laser, even at maximum power. Breaking free, she beats Mojo senseless. When Blossom and Buttercup arrive, they're shocked to see her victorious and finally call her hardcore. Bubbles apologizes and returns to normal, until Mojo zaps them again, prompting one last furious beating from Bubbles. The scene begins with the mayor proudly declaring his love for his job as the mayor of Townsville, starting with the famous line, "The city of Townsville," instead of the usual narrator. Just as he begins his morning work, Mojo Jojo crashes through the office window and kidnaps him. The Powerpuff Girls quickly locate Mojo and rescue the mayor after defeating the villain. Once safe, the mayor, still blindfolded, asks what happened since he only heard sounds of fighting. When he notices the girls giggling, he becomes curious about what they find so funny. Each of the girls then shares her own version of the story. Bubbles starts by saying they were at school when it happened, and she was drawing a red daisy. Blossom corrected her, saying red daisies are biogenetically impossible, so Bubbles made it yellow instead. Blossom and Buttercup interrupt, insisting the mayor only needs the key details. Blossom then takes over, explaining she was studying conversational Chinese when Ms. Bellum called about the mayor's kidnapping. She proudly claims she took charge right away, which annoys Buttercup, who says Blossom is minimizing their efforts. Bubbles, still focused on her drawing, insists it mattered too. In the end, the confused mayor only wants to know why they were laughing. The girls leave without answering. The camera pans out, revealing the reason. The mayor has been stripped, except for his hat and monocle. After stopping a man from stealing a jewel meant to power a deadly ray, the Powerpuff Girls escape the collapsing penthouse and hand the criminal over to the police. During the chaos, Bubbles rescues his cat and decides to take it home. Blossom and Bubbles adore the cat, while Buttercup dislikes it, until it steals her yo-yo and plays with it like a toy mouse, winning everyone over. Professor Utonium agrees to let the cat stay for the night. Later, the playful cat sneaks into his lab, where the professor first scolds it but soon becomes charmed as well. The next morning, the girls make him breakfast, hoping it will convince him to let them keep the cat. To their delight, he agrees, but they are puzzled when he refuses to let Bubbles hold it and quickly locks himself in his lab. That night, the professor and the cat, now called White Kitty, steal the same cat's eye jewel. The girls realize the cat has hypnotized him. Soon, a strange beam turns all cats in Townsville into pampered rulers, even making the mayor act like one. The girls track the source and fight their mind-controlled father. When the professor accidentally falls, they save him, breaking his trance. He wakes up believing it was just a dream, as the villainous cat meows helplessly from a tree. It's campaign season in Townsville, and the mayor is busy rehearsing a speech filled with famous quotes and borrowed lines from great American leaders. Miss Bellum questions why he's bothering, reminding him that no one ever runs against him. But the mayor insists on doing things properly. While campaigning in the woods, the mayor's speech accidentally wakes Fuzzy Lumpkins, who angrily tells him to be quiet. Surprisingly, Fuzzy's outburst wins over the townspeople, and soon he becomes the mayor of Townsville, leaving the real mayor literally thrown out of office. Fuzzy quickly lets power go to his head. He turns City Hall into a muddy pigsty, makes Miss Bellum dress like a country girl, and forces the Powerpuff Girls to obey ridiculous orders, like washing his clothes and catching his pigs. The girls realize he's even worse than the original mayor, and convince the defeated mayor to reclaim his job. At first he refuses, until Miss Bellum mentions that Fuzzy is wearing his hat. Enraged, the mayor storms back to City Hall and challenges Fuzzy to a wrestling match. Though Fuzzy fights dirty and brings his whole family, the mayor snaps when Fuzzy puts on his hat, fights back with surprising skill, and defeats him. With his hat and title restored, the mayor proudly resumes office by asking the girls to help him catch his runaway pig. It's a bright and cheerful day in Townsville, which makes it miserable for a grump like Mojo Jojo. After waking up, he plans to cook breakfast but realizes he's out of eggs. Forced to go to the supermarket, his day goes downhill fast. He forgets his wallet, finds kids splashing in his moat, and grows annoyed waiting for the traffic light to change. At the store, when he asks an employee where the eggs are, he's told they're in aisle 3, where he's already standing. Embarrassed, Mojo finally returns home, cooks his breakfast, and begins to calm down. But when he reads about the Powerpuff Girls' latest heroics in the newspaper, his anger returns, reminding him that he must destroy them, right after washing the dishes. Soon, the Powerpuff Girls accidentally send their baseball crashing through his window. This gives Mojo an idea for a new evil plan. He'll hide their ball, pretend to help them find it, and then destroy them. When the girls visit his lair, they touch everything in sight, including his treasured Ming Dynasty vase. Trying to control his rage, Mojo prepares his ray, but chaos follows. The girls accidentally wreck his lab, and in the confusion, Mojo blasts his own vase. Defeated, he returns their ball, only to be praised the next day as a hero, leaving him screaming in disbelief. The scene begins with Rainbow the Clown entertaining children at a birthday party for a boy named Jim. He sings, dances, and makes everyone laugh until a bleach truck swerves nearby and spills its load all over him. The bleach drains Rainbow's colors and happiness, transforming him into the gloomy Mr. Mime. When a truck driver checks on him, Mr. Mime reacts in horror at the sight of color and drains both the man's color and voice. He does the same to a nearby boy, then stomps the ground, turning the entire area black and white before spreading his dullness across Townsville. Meanwhile, the Powerpuff Girls are on the school bus. Bubbles happily colors a picture, but as the bus approaches a colorless stoplight, it nearly crashes into another car until the girls save both vehicles. Bubbles then cries out in shock at the loss of color everywhere. The girls search for answers and soon find Mr. Mime draining the life and color from Townsville. He ambushes Blossom and Buttercup, freezing them in monochrome. Heartbroken, Bubbles tries to recolor them with crayons, but it fails. Desperate, she begins singing, "Love makes the world go round." Her song restores color and joy to Townsville. Even Mr. Mime transforms back into Rainbow the Clown, who thanks the girls before they promptly arrest him. Mojo Jojo is once again causing chaos in Townsville with his laser cannons and giant machines, but the Powerpuff Girls defeat him easily every time. After 3 humiliating losses, Mojo reaches his breaking point in prison and decides he must fight fire with fire. Pretending to be a student from Townsville Community College, he calls Professor Utonium to ask what the Powerpuff Girls are made of. When he learns they were created from sugar, spice, and everything nice, he decides to make something tougher and more manly. In his cell, Mojo begins his experiment. He gathers snips, armpit hairs from a weightlifting inmate, snails, escargot from the prison commissary, and a puppy dog's tail, stolen from the talking dog on duty. For Chemical X, he substitutes filthy toilet water. One flush causes a massive explosion that floods the entire prison block. When the water clears, Mojo's creation comes to life. 3 rude, destructive boys named Brick, Boomer, and Butch, the Rowdy Rough Boys. Delighted, Mojo claims them as his sons and orders them to destroy the Powerpuff Girls. The next day, the Rowdy Rough Boys attack just as the girls finish saving Townsville from a giant octopus. A fierce battle follows. The boys prove reckless and powerful, hurling cars, ships, and even planes, leaving the city in ruins as the fight rages on. Realizing the Rowdy Rough Boys' ruthless disregard for life, the Powerpuff Girls decide to lure them out of Townsville to prevent further destruction. However, the boys catch up quickly, unleashing toxic fumes that knock the girls out mid-air. Before they can recover, the Rowdy Rough Boys strike with a devastating blow, sending the girls crashing into the streets below. A blinding flash erupts, convincing both the townspeople and Mojo Jojo that the girls have been destroyed. Triumphant, Mojo celebrates in his lair alongside his evil creations, while the citizens of Townsville mourn the supposed loss of their beloved heroes. As the crowd weeps, their tears fall on the girls' motionless bodies, reviving them in the crater. Though alive, the girls are filled with shame and self-doubt, believing they have failed the city. Just as they prepare to leave Townsville for good, Ms. Bellum rushes in and stops them. She assures them that the people still love them and reveals that their defeat came from fighting the wrong way. When she asks what little boys fear most, the girls realize the answer isn't strength, but affection. Taking her advice, the girls confront the Rowdy Rough Boys once more. Instead of fighting, they each kiss their counterpart, causing the horrified boys to explode into dust. Mojo is arrested again, and Townsville is safe once more. The city of Townsville is home to many landmarks and fun attractions except Mount Rushmore. One of its most famous spots is Bonsai Gardens Park in the Japanese-inspired district of Little Tokyo. There, the Utonium family enjoys a peaceful day until a giant fish balloon monster attacks. The girls defeat it, but when they take damage, the professor grows worried about their safety. Though they reassure him, he fears losing them one day. That night, the professor builds a massive robot shaped like the girls, calling it the Dynamic Nanotectronic Monobot, or Powerpuff Dynamo. It's packed with high-tech protection, titanium armor, and powerful weapons. The girls think it's cool but unnecessary. Blossom tells him they can handle themselves, yet the professor insists they're still his family, and he'll protect them no matter what. Blossom reluctantly agrees to use it for serious emergencies only. A week later, after many battles, Dynamo is nearly drained. During a boat race at Bonsai Gardens Park, the giant fish balloon returns, now much bigger. The girls fight it but get injured. As the monster wreaks havoc on Tokyo Townsville, the professor begs them to use Dynamo. Buttercup refuses, but he finally loses his temper and threatens to ground them. Left with no choice, the girls activate Dynamo while the professor follows by helicopter. The monster continues to rampage through Little Tokyo until the Powerpuff Dynamo finally arrives. The girls prepare for battle, but the Dynamo's safety shield suddenly activates on its own, forcing it into a curled defensive position. The monster takes advantage, slamming the mech through several buildings. Inside, Blossom realizes that the professor triggered the safety switch remotely out of concern. Once the system stabilizes, Dynamo goes on the offensive, firing a barrage of missiles, but every shot misses the monster, even at close range. The creature retaliates by inflating its body and launching massive pins at high speed, striking everything nearby. Dynamo blocks most of them and then uses its scissor-shaped bow to attack, but the monster dulls it with flying debris. Thinking fast, the girls grab a bowling alley sign, remove the 3-star pins, and hurl them like shuriken. The sharp stars pierce the monster's body, popping it like a balloon and sending it flying toward Mount Rushmore, where a startled man yells, "Hey!" as it crashes. Despite the destruction, the girls and Dynamo celebrate their victory. However, when the mayor arrives, he angrily scolds them for wrecking half the city. He calls the Dynamo a botstrosity and bans its use. The townspeople agree, while the girls blame the professor, who quickly flees in his helicopter to avoid the mob. A new day begins in Townsville as Princess Moorbucks arrives at Pokey Oaks Kindergarten in a limousine. Her father hands her a bundle of cash for milk money, but she looks disappointed. Inside, Ms. Keene introduces her to the class, and though everyone greets her kindly, Princess rudely insults them. When she calls the class hamster Twiggy a smelly, mangy rat, the hamster spins so fast on her wheel that it breaks loose. The Powerpuff Girls rush in to save Twiggy, earning cheers from the class. Curious, Princess asks how they did that. The girls proudly explain that they are superheroes called the Powerpuff Girls. Amused, Princess declares she wants to join them, but the girls laugh and explain that they are not taking new members. Upset, Princess throws a tantrum and begs to join, but they refuse since she has no powers or fighting skills. Later, Blossom suggests giving her another chance as a friend, while Princess cries to her father, blaming the girls for rejecting her. He comforts her by handing her a pile of cash. The next day, Princess arrives in a Powerpuff-style outfit, claiming to be one of them. When the Powerpuff hotline rings, the girls fly off to stop a bank robbery, and Princess follows with her jetpack. Her gadgets fail, she knocks herself out, and the robbers escape. Furious, the girls scold her for interfering and warn her to stay out of crime fighting. The next day, Princess Moorbucks arrives at school in dramatic fashion, blasting a hole through the wall and wearing solid gold battle armor. Furious at the Powerpuff Girls, she accuses them of humiliating her and turning everyone against her. She declares that if she cannot be a Powerpuff Girl, then there will not be any Powerpuff Girls. Ms. Keene quickly intervenes, reminding her that fighting is not allowed inside, so Princess politely suggests taking it outside. She immediately fires a laser that blows the girls through the wall and onto the playground. Buttercup charges at her, but Princess dodges every move and knocks her out with a powerful punch. Bubbles attacks with laser eyes, but the golden armor reflects them. She then tries a supersonic scream, yet Princess blocks it with a shield and stuns her with a laser from her crown. Blossom watches in shock as her sisters fall unconscious. Mocking Blossom, Princess continues to brag until Blossom fights back. She dodges Princess's attacks, strikes the armor's weak spots, and finally freezes it with her ice breath. The armor shatters, and Blossom catches the crying Princess mid-air. Tearfully, Princess asks why she cannot be a Powerpuff Girl. Blossom explains that being one means protecting others, not demanding power or fame. Defeated, Princess is taken to jail, still calling for her daddy. Bubbles battles Fuzzy Lumpkins, but it turns out to be part of a video game played by Ace of the Gangrene Gang at an arcade. The gang spends their time earning tickets until they run into a truant officer named Mr. Jack Wednesday. When he learns they have never attended school, he sends them to Pokey Oaks Kindergarten. At school, Ms. Keene introduces the gang by their real names, though the Powerpuff Girls warn her that they are dangerous criminals. Ace convinces Ms. Keene to let them stay, and she tells the girls to give them a fair chance. During snack time, the gang bullies the class using milk and cookies, while Ms. Keene stops the girls from fighting back. In Show and Tell, Grubber transforms his body shape, Big Billy reveals his hidden eye, and Lil Arturo shows a weapon that turns out to be a comb. Later, during craft time, they throw paste at everyone, including the Powerpuff Girls. When Ms. Keene catches the girls retaliating, she punishes them with a timeout. At recess, the gang throws dodgeballs at the kids. The girls complain, but Ms. Keene ignores them until she realizes her mistake. Finally, she allows them to fight back. The girls defeat the gang in a wild dodgeball game, and Ms. Keene apologizes for doubting them. Lenny Baxter, a self-proclaimed comic book geek, is the biggest Powerpuff Girls fan in Townsville. His house is filled wall-to-wall with Powerpuff memorabilia, and one day, after adding a new posable Blossom doll to his collection, he realizes with shock that his collection is now complete. However, the satisfaction doesn't last long. He wants more. That night, Lenny sneaks into the Powerpuff Girls' house and steals their personal belongings, including Blossom's hair clip, Buttercup's workout beef, Bubbles' crayons and Octi, their hotline, and even a family photo with the professor. The next morning, the girls argue over who stole whose stuff, unaware of the real culprit. But Lenny's obsession grows darker. He decides to collect the girls themselves. Using the stolen hotline, Lenny lures them into his apartment, where they find a massive shrine of Powerpuff merchandise. He traps them inside sealed power packages. Their screams alert Professor Utonium, who rushes to the mayor. Soon, all of Townsville storms Lenny's apartment. To force Lenny to surrender, the professor has children open his mint-condition merchandise, horrifying the collector. Lenny finally breaks and reveals where the girls are hidden. The professor frees them, and the citizens cheer. Lenny is arrested, and the narrator proudly declares that this time, it was the people of Townsville who saved the day. The Smith family is living peacefully in Townsville next to the Powerpuff Girls. Harold Smith, the father, lives a simple and repetitive life. Every day he wakes up, gets ready, eats breakfast with his wife Marianne and their children Bud and Julie, goes to work filling mustard jars at a factory, and returns home to watch the news. One evening, the news reports that Mojo Jojo has taken the mayor hostage inside City Hall. Inspired by the report, Harold quietly starts working on something in his private time. The next day, the situation continues as Mojo Jojo defeats the Powerpuff Girls using a laser gun and captures them too. That night, Harold again sneaks away to work secretly. By the third day, the Powerpuff Girls finally defeat Mojo Jojo and rescue the mayor. Later, Marianne invites the professor and the girls to dinner, hoping to be friendly neighbors, though Harold feels nervous about it. During dinner, Harold loses control while hearing about their mission. He suddenly acts like a villain, wearing a silly costume and pretending to threaten the professor with a hairdryer. As tension rises, Marianne scolds him for misbehaving. When dessert is served, Blossom attacks with a pie, causing a playful pie fight. The police soon arrive and arrest Harold, leaving Marianne furious at the Powerpuff Girls for ruining their dinner. One night in prison, Mojo Jojo, Princess Morbucks, and the Amoeba Boys each finish creating their own plans to destroy the Powerpuff Girls. Their schemes all involve birthday presents meant to surprise the girls later. The next morning, Townsville is filled with excitement as everyone gathers to celebrate the Powerpuff Girls' birthday. The mayor, the professor, and Rainbow the Clown are among the guests. Eager to open their gifts, the girls try using their X-ray vision to peek inside, but the professor insists they serve cake first. After rushing through the celebration, they open the first present, unaware it is from Mojo Jojo. A giant robot bursts out, causing chaos, but the girls quickly defeat it, leaving Mojo's plan a failure. Next, they open Princess Morbucks's gift, which only contains a lid with a target. Suddenly, a rocket appears in the sky, forming a message that reads, "Happy Birthday." Realizing the target is meant to guide the rocket toward them, the girls move it in time to stop the explosion. Finally, the Amoeba Boys' gift contains voodoo dolls of the girls, but the plan fails when the real girls end up playing with them. Later, Him unleashes a possessed piñata shaped like a bull, but the girls defeat it too. Though the party turns chaotic, everyone agrees it was the best birthday ever. In the city of Townsville, chaos strikes as usual, and the Powerpuff Girls arrive to save the day. However, over time, the citizens begin taking advantage of them, assigning petty chores instead of real hero work. From walking dogs and changing light bulbs to cleaning litter boxes, the girls are treated more like assistants than heroes. Even the professor joins in, asking them to fetch the TV remote just because he doesn't feel like moving. Frustrated and fed up, the girls complain about being taken for granted and storm out. Bubbles pretends to obey the professor, but tosses the remote on the floor before following her sisters. Later, while the girls relax on a cloud, a giant monster attacks Townsville. The citizens, assuming the girls will handle it, panic when the mayor discovers an answering machine instead of their help. When found, the girls tell everyone to deal with it themselves. But the people, having relied on them for everything, are clueless. The monster accidentally gets tangled in electric wires, and the townsfolk wrongly celebrate its defeat. The girls try teaching them how to fight back, asking what doesn't mix with electricity. After several silly answers, firefighters finally get the idea to spray the monster with water, shocking it to defeat. The city celebrates, except the mayor, who orders the girls to clean up. A strange spaceship hovers above Earth, carrying broccoli-like aliens called the Broccoloids who plan to conquer the planet. They launch a pea-pod-shaped sporepedo toward Earth, which lands in Farmsville's fields. That evening in Townsville, the Powerpuff Girls and other children are served broccoli for dinner but refuse to eat it. When the professor tries to show them how to eat it, he and all the adults suddenly collapse, their eyes glowing green. Soon, the girls receive calls from panicked kids saying the same thing happened to their parents after eating broccoli. Realizing something strange is happening, the girls fly to Farmsville to investigate and discover the sporepedo. Blossom explains that it contains spores capable of hypnotizing anyone who ate infected broccoli. Just then, the Broccoloids arrive to begin their invasion, but are surprised to see the girls unaffected. When fighting fails, Blossom remembers the professor's advice about eating vegetables and bites one of the aliens, discovering it works. The sisters join in, devouring their way through the Broccoloid army. Back in Townsville, the girls rally the kids to fight by eating the invaders. Though some hesitate, they soon join the battle, using cheese, pepper, and even animals to help. Finally, the Powerpuff Girls defeat the Broccoloid Emperor, freeing the adults, and the next day, everyone happily eats their vegetables. During a town cleanup day, the Powerpuff Girls battle a monster made entirely of oil. After Buttercup crashes into an oil tank, the creature is defeated, but all three girls are covered in grime. That night, the professor runs them a bath, but Buttercup refuses, claiming that only big, fat sissies take baths. The next day, a slimy mammoth monster covers Townsville in sticky mucus. While Blossom and Bubbles avoid the mess, Buttercup dives right in, proud to get dirty if it means winning the fight. However, her smell soon becomes unbearable. Even when the professor insists she bathe, she stubbornly refuses, so he kicks her out of the house. Later, Buttercup fights another monster and gets drenched in sewage. When she arrives at school, her stench sets off the fire alarm, forcing everyone outside. The mayor receives so many complaints that he personally orders Buttercup to either bathe or leave town. Still refusing, she's chased into the woods by an angry mob. While alone, Buttercup insists she'll never bathe again. But when a monster sniffs her and retreats in disgust, she finally changes her mind. She returns home, takes a reluctant bath, and rejoins her sisters. Though she's squeaky clean again, Blossom teases that her attitude still stinks. The narrator introduces the Sandman, whose job is to sprinkle magic sand to make everyone in the world fall asleep. After finishing his work in Townsville, he prepares to rest, but an alarm reminds him that another part of the world needs sleep. Realizing his job never ends, the Sandman grows exhausted and desperate for rest. To solve this, he builds a giant machine that spreads his magic sand over the entire world, putting everyone to sleep forever. Meanwhile, the Powerpuff Girls are playing in their room when the professor tells them it's bedtime. They refuse, saying they aren't tired. When the Sandman tries to sleep again, his alarm alerts him that the girls are still awake. Frustrated, he appears in their room, explaining his plan and using his machine to knock them out before returning to his lair to finally sleep. Inside their shared dream, the girls decide to fight back by entering the Sandman's dream and scaring him awake. They chase him through bizarre dreamscapes, turning into chickens, attacking him with pillows, and even appearing as a giant monster like Bubbles. Terrified, the Sandman wakes up, ending his nightmare. He promises never to sleep again and wakes the whole world. Exhausted, the Powerpuff Girls finally fall asleep for real. Late one night, Mojo Jojo works tirelessly on what he believes will be his greatest plan yet to destroy the Powerpuff Girls. After realizing his earlier idea was flawed, he finally perfects his new scheme. However, a sudden gust of wind from an open window blows the blueprints out of his hands and into the night sky, landing right in front of the dim-witted Amoeba Boys. The Amoeba Boys mistake the plans for random scribbles and toss them aside, only for the Powerpuff Girls to find them the next morning. Thinking it's a scavenger hunt list, the girls gather the listed items, like a bathtub, a giant crab, and a huge magnet. When the girls accuse the Amoeba Boys of littering, the clueless trio happily helps them find more pieces, including gum, paper clips, and a flashlight. Meanwhile, Mojo frantically searches for his missing plans, tearing apart his lair in panic. When the girls finish building the mystery machine, they assume it's a fun ride and test it out, only to realize too late that it's a Powerpuff destruction device. Mojo spots his machine in use and rushes to take control. The girls escape after chewing through the gum trapping them, then defeat Mojo. Despite everything, both Mojo and the Amoeba Boys end up taking the blame, landing in jail together. The Gangrene Gang is at an underground subway spraying graffiti on the walls. When Ace warns them about an oncoming train, everyone jumps aside except Big Billy, who laughs at his graffiti and sits between the rails. He gets stuck because of his weight, but the Powerpuff Girls arrive just in time to save him. Shaken by the experience, Big Billy feels grateful and decides to change his ways. The next day, he visits the Powerpuff Girls' home, telling Professor Utonium that he has switched sides. While Blossom doubts his intentions, Bubbles and Buttercup give him a chance. At dinner, Big Billy tries to help, but ends up being too forceful, shoving the girls into their seats. When the professor scolds Buttercup for not eating her vegetables, Billy defends her, saying she shouldn't have to eat broccoli. Later that night, Big Billy reads to the girls but falls asleep. When the hotline rings, he answers it clumsily and struggles to explain a bank robbery. At the scene, his clumsy attempt to help causes the robbers to escape. He then ruins Art during another mission and accidentally destroys Townsville while fighting a monster. Frustrated, Blossom scolds him and sends him away. Hurt, Big Billy rejoins his gang, but later saves the girls again, proving his good heart despite his mistakes. Mojo Jojo attacks a construction site in Townsville using his flying alien ship. The Powerpuff Girls chase him and fire lasers, but Mojo mocks their weak attacks and drops a heavy I-beam. Blossom warns everyone to move, yet Bubbles reacts too late and gets hit on the head. When she wakes up in her bedroom, she looks around in confusion, leaves her headbands on the bed, and runs away frightened. Meanwhile, Mojo takes a shower in his lair but is shocked to find his clothes missing. Suddenly, Bubbles appears, knocks him out, and steals his outfit. At home, Blossom and Buttercup search for Bubbles but can't find her. When the hotline rings, the mayor reports that Mojo is attacking Townsville with his giant robot. Blossom decides to act immediately, despite Buttercup's worry about Bubbles. At the site, the girls face the robot, only to discover that Bubbles is inside, dressed like Mojo and calling herself Mojo Jojo. Confused, Blossom and Buttercup realize Bubbles believes she's the villain. When they try to reason with her, Bubbles attacks both of them with incredible power. Mojo, now angry and embarrassed, hits her on the head to stop her, declaring that there can only be one Mojo Jojo. Bubbles wakes up, regains her senses, and defeats Mojo, returning to her sweet and cheerful self. Nearing Father's Day, the Powerpuff Girls want to make the professor happy. While walking in Townsville, they notice the professor admiring a set of limited edition Pro Excellence 2000 golf clubs in a shop window. The clubs cost $2,000 and only 12 sets exist worldwide. The girls attempt to craft a gift but fail, and then consider ways to earn the money, including selling cookies and lemonade. Realizing fighting crime is their talent, they respond to an emergency call and defeat Mojo Jojo, whose hobby store rampage caused chaos. At the mayor's office, the girls ask for payment, but the mayor refuses. While cleaning Mojo's mess, Blossom notices the golf club's shop window is broken and succumbs to temptation, taking the clubs. The next day, she surprises the professor with them, who is delighted. Bubbles and Buttercup grow suspicious. Later, at the golf course, The mayor-in-chief notice the rare clubs are missing and the professor is arrested on suspicion of theft. Blossom panics and attempts to blame Mojo Jojo, but her sisters and the professor insist she tell the truth. Cornered, Blossom confesses that she stole the clubs to make the professor happy. The professor, saddened, realizes he put too much value on material objects. The mayor leaves the punishment to Chief Hiddledy, who sentences Blossom to 200 hours of community service. The girls learn that crime does not pay, and the day is saved thanks to Bubbles and Buttercup. As the standard end shot appears, they look down at Blossom and fly away right before prison bars are lowered. The Powerpuff Girls, though appreciated for protecting Townsville, become exhausted from constant crime fighting and start falling asleep in class. Noticing this, Ms. Keene arranges a parent-teacher conference with Professor Utonium, highlighting the girls' declining participation and unusual sleeping patterns. She recommends a curfew, and the professor enforces it, demanding the girls be in bed by 7:30 p.m. Despite their protests about Townsville needing their help, the professor insists the city will be fine overnight. Buttercup points out that villains are more active late at night, but the professor remains adamant. When the Powerpuff hotline rings, the girls attempt to respond, only for the professor to call them back, enforcing the curfew. Mojo Jojo continues his chaos unopposed, and the girls worry as multiple villains parade through Townsville causing destruction. The girls try to alert the professor again, but he ignores them, even severing the hotline cable. News reports of fires, riots, monster attacks, and crime fill the screens. Frantic, the professor realizes he forgot to adjust the clocks for daylight savings time, meaning he called the girls back an hour early. Acting quickly, he reactivates them with 49 minutes to spare. The Powerpuff Girls spring into action and swiftly stop the rampaging villains, saving Townsville. The professor and the citizens breathe a sigh of relief, learning a lesson about balancing rules with the city's needs. Princess Morbucks, feeling envious of the Powerpuff Girls' triumphs over Mojo Jojo, sees a news report showing the girls battered but victorious, and notices Mojo's clever planning skills. Wanting to defeat the girls herself, she visits Mojo's volcanic laboratory and offers to hire him to create a plan against them. Initially reluctant, Mojo agrees after Morbucks delivers a ton of money via helicopter, giving him the financial backing needed for research and development. Mojo unveils his invention, a hypodermic laser gun capable of firing both Chemical X and its antidote. He prepares the substances while Morbucks impatiently urges him to act. Mojo shoots her with the gun, granting her powers comparable to the girls. The next day, Morbucks calls for help at Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, luring the girls to her. They find her tied up in Mojo's lair, but she now possesses powers that resist their attacks. Morbucks encourages Mojo to use the antidote on the girls to remove their abilities. Blossom notices a label on the gun warning that it removes powers. As Mojo fires, she saves Buttercup and quickly uses bathroom tiles to reflect the beam. The shot ultimately hits Morbucks while she tries to dodge, draining her powers. She falls on Mojo, destroying the gun. The girls send both villains back to jail, with Morbucks serving time despite her powers being gone. The girls' teamwork and quick thinking thwart the scheme, reinforcing that crime does not pay. The professor proudly explains its qualities, tricks it can perform, eternal youth, but stresses one rule: it must only be fed once. The girls take Bebo out to play. Blossom gives it a makeover with a bow and feeds it an apple when it frowns. Buttercup tosses Bebo against a wall, feeding it chocolate cake, while Bubbles gives it pizza after it wakes her. Each time Bebo is fed, it grows larger. Days later, Bebo has arms, legs, and enormous size. During a game of hide-and-seek, it lunges at furniture and grows again. The professor realizes the girls have overfed it, despite each insisting they only fed Bebo once. Outside, Bebo rampages, consuming people, vehicles, and buildings. The Powerpuff hotline buzzes, but chaos interrupts the call. Attempts to stop Bebo fail. Blossom negotiates, Buttercup fights, and Bubbles shows affection. All result in Bebo swallowing them. Eventually, Bebo's stomach rumbles and it explodes from overeating, freeing everyone. The explosion produces many small Bebos, each assigned to different people. The professor reiterates the feeding rule as the mayor struggles to comply. The girls are initially sad to lose the original Bebo, but rejoice at their new miniature pets, learning the importance of moderation. The scene begins at Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, where Ms. Keene announces a little surprise. Blossom guesses she is getting a nose job. Bubbles guesses she is getting married, and Buttercup guesses she is being fired. Ms. Keene corrects them and introduces the new student, Mike Believe, who shyly hides behind her legs. He walks to the back of the class, ignoring Bubbles' greeting. During recess, Mike sits alone in the sandbox and appears to be talking to someone invisible. Buttercup calls him weird, but Bubbles defends him, even talking to herself to show it is acceptable. Back in class, Mike laughs and remarks that he thinks girls are gross too. When Ms. Keene asks who he is talking to, Mike replies that it is his new friend, Patches. The other students laugh, except Bubbles. Mike's mischief escalates as he throws paper at Bubbles, dips a girl's hair in green paint, and alters Blossom's spelling word from cookie to dookie. Ms. Keene punishes him with a timeout. During story time, classroom objects move on their own. Ms. Keene blames Mike, but Bubbles insists that Patches is responsible. Chairs, paint cans, and even Ms. Keene's apple fly through the air. The chalkboard reads that Patches says, "No one can stop him." The girls try to stop Patches but are blocked. Buttercup crashes, Blossom trips, and Bubbles is blinded by chalk dust. Blossom creates their own imaginary friend, a strong, smart bunny combining the girls' best traits. The bunny defeats Patches, fills him with helium, and lets him float away. Before leaving, the friend promises to stay in Bubbles' imagination. The girls offer to be Mike's friends, and everyone laughs except Buttercup. It is a romantic day in Townsville. During recess at Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, Harry Pitt chases everyone, trying to kiss them. Believing he has cooties, the children run in fear. The Powerpuff Girls do not know what cooties are or what to do, but Bubbles flees after Mitch Mitchelson warns her. Meanwhile, Mojo Jojo watches, looking for a new weapon for his crimes. Seeing the girls running from Harry, he teams up with him to terrorize Townsville. The girls are unsure what cootie exposure will do, and Blossom suggests they just go to bed and forget about it. That night, they have nightmares imagining Harry's cooties as tiny growths resembling him, spreading and flooding their surroundings. The next day, a Powerpuff hotline call alerts them to a bank robbery by Mojo. Arriving, they see his new partner and are intimidated into retreating. Using fear, Mojo gains the loyalty of two mobsters, and together they carry out successful heists while the girls avoid Harry. Eventually, the mayor is held hostage at City Hall. The girls respond to a hotline call but fall into a pit when Mojo triggers a trap door with Harry dropped in after them. He chases them, trying to kiss them, and Blossom is cornered and kissed on the cheek. Nothing happens, and the girls realize cooties are imaginary. Turning the tables, they call Harry a cutie, kiss him repeatedly, and then fly out to confront Mojo. Harry stays behind, covered in lipstick, happy his affections are returned. Mojo goes to jail, but his new prison mate's creepy smile hints at trouble. During a rainy day in Townsville, everyone stays indoors, and all outdoor activities are canceled due to the weather. The Powerpuff Girls cannot fight crime because no villains are active in the rain, which frustrates Buttercup. Bubbles suggests they play a pretend game in which they act as themselves fighting monsters, and the sisters agree. Blossom builds a block city representing Townsville, adding a car figure named Joe. Buttercup, pretending to be a giant alligator, attacks the city and tries to eat Joe. Blossom tells her to wait since she is running Townsville, while Bubbles claims she is in charge, using Octi's top hat and tying her pigtails over her face to resemble the mayor. The girls set up equipment for the mayor, with Bubbles calling for Ms. Bellum. Blossom assumes the role, suggesting Bubbles contact the Powerpuff Girls about the pretend monster. Bubbles reaches the actual mayor, who mistakes himself for the girls, attempts to fly out the window and fall into mud. Buttercup switches roles, claiming Blossom's position, which leads to a disagreement about who can play which part. Bubbles proposes to play herself, but her sisters refuse. The professor intervenes, and the girls assign him to play Bubbles, tying his hair into pigtails. Blossom plays the monster while Bubbles and Buttercup pretend to strike at it. The professor unconvincingly pretends to attack, and Blossom lies defeated. The girls debate which villain summoned the monster, impersonating Fuzzy Lumpkins, him, and Mojo Jojo. Blossom hides as Mojo Jojo, declaring a plan to remove the video game cartridge. Bubbles and Buttercup chase her, but the sun rises and a real monster, a giant alligator, attacks. Exhausted from playing, the girls reluctantly leave to fight it. Following the events of Supper Villain, the story recaps Harold Smith's transformation. An ordinary man living a dull life, Harold witnesses a hostage situation involving the Powerpuff Girls, the mayor, and Mojo Jojo, which inspires him to become a villain. Later, his family invites the professor and the girls to dinner, during which Harold reveals his ambitions by holding the professor hostage. The police arrive amid the ensuing food fight and arrest him, while his wife, Marianne, quietly harbors resentment toward the girls for ruining her party. A week passes, and Harold is released from the Townsville Correctional Facility, where he has spent his time exercising, stamping license plates, and eating slop. At home, Marianne scolds him for embarrassing her and himself, but declares that they will take revenge on the girls together. Harold, excited, thinks about their children, Bud and Julie, who quickly join in with their own grudges. Julie over lost Jax and Bud over general dislike. Harold announces they will destroy the Powerpuff Girls as a supervillain family. With new costumes and a weaponized family van, they begin by vandalizing the Utonium home while the family is out. When the Utoniums return, Marianne offers cookies and feigns concern, but the girls and the professor remain united, emphasizing their strength together. Enraged, Marianne directs the family van to attack again, but the girls destroy it and confront the Smiths. Marianne admits their motives: ruined dinner, Harold's jail time, and personal vendettas. The girls dismiss these excuses, defeat the Smiths, and ensure they are sent back to jail. After a long day of thwarting bank robberies, fighting monsters, and saving citizens, the Powerpuff Girls return home exhausted. The professor reminds them of their chores, prompting the girls to realize they need more help with crime fighting. They sneak into the professor's lab to create another Powerpuff Girl using his old technique. Lacking the proper ingredients, they improvise. Artificial sweetener replaces sugar, dirt and twigs stand in for spices, and they add everything nice, which includes crayons, books, lizards, flowers, computers, footballs, stuffed animals, calculators, a mackerel, a compass, boxing gloves, a ribbon, art, bandages, a smiley face, a globe, and even a knuckle sandwich from Buttercup. As if by accident, they add Chemical X. The mixture explodes in classic fashion, creating a hideously oversized Powerpuff Girl. They name her Bunny after Bubbles' suggestion, and send her off to fight crime. However, Bunny misinterprets her orders, seeing police officers as criminals and imprisoning them instead. Seeing her on the news, the girls realize Townsville is in danger and rush to stop her. Upset by their reprimands, Bunny flies away. When the girls are surrounded by criminals, Bunny hears their cries from a ledge at sea and swoops in to save them, attacking with the precision only the girls are known for. Suddenly, she wobbles, emits white light, and explodes. The girls recover thanks to her sacrifice. Blossom concludes that Bunny was unstable and broke down into her original ingredients, while Bubbles reflects that Bunny was good, despite their cruelty. The girls mourn their lost sister, understanding that their harshness cost her life. It is not uncommon for the girls to respond to emergency dispatches, such as when Buttercup swiftly takes down a group of thieves. On several other occasions, the mayor calls, and Blossom and Bubbles look for Buttercup, but she arrives too late to participate. On one call, the girls eventually find Buttercup in the closet, cuddling a green blanket and repeatedly chanting that she is a good fighter while stroking it. She claims she is practicing her spelling, but her sisters insist she does not need a security blanket to prove her skills in combat. After a recent battle, the blanket goes missing. Buttercup trashes the house in frustration, throwing a tantrum when her sisters remind her that saving Townsville takes priority. Soon after, a small but formidable monster appears, and Buttercup falters under its strength and sonic attacks. Blossom then presents a blanket, which reignites Buttercup's confidence. Energized, she defeats the monster and proudly cuddles the blanket in front of the public. That evening at home, Buttercup realizes the blanket is a fake, and she frantically searches for her real one before breaking down. The professor then appears with the true blanket. Buttercup hugs it tightly at first, but when her sisters glare, she allows the professor to hold it instead. Following her example, the professor repeatedly chants that he is a good scientist while rubbing the blanket on his face, as part of a psychological experiment. At Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, Buttercup impatiently watches the clock, eager for vacation in the Bahamas. Ms. Keene calls her name to snap her back to reality and insists she pay attention. For several minutes, Ms. Keene mutters to herself while scribbling complicated math on the board, only realizing halfway through that the class is staring at her in confusion. She quickly regains composure and, as the bell rings, bids the children farewell. The girls race past her, waving goodbye. Outside, Buttercup announces their freedom, revealing that they are going to the Bahamas for the weekend. Bubbles mentions working on her tan, and Blossom remarks that they will enjoy a whole weekend away from Townsville and the hotline. Bubbles imitates the mayor, claiming he accidentally flushed himself down the toilet, causing both her and Blossom to laugh. Buttercup challenges her sisters to a race home, prompting Bubbles to angrily retort at being called a slowpoke. The girls line up, count down, and blast off at the speed of light. Their velocity destroys a car and nearly hits a passerby who urges them to slow down. The race intensifies until Buttercup surges ahead, forcing Blossom and Bubbles to catch up, but suddenly, time freezes. Buttercup's voice echoes, claiming victory, before motion resumes and they land outside their house. They fail to notice the red sky or the shattered windows. Buttercup gloats, but Bubbles cries, convinced her sister cheated. They rush to the lab and find a senile, aged professor struggling with mismatched ingredients for another Powerpuff Girl. He mistakes them for hallucinations and chases them out. Terrified, the girls exit, only to find Townsville reduced to a barren wasteland. The girls fly through the decimated city, eventually reaching City Hall, where they find Ms. Sarah Bellum, now old and insane, mourning the death of the mayor. She orders them to leave, claiming the mayor is hers. The girls flee and arrive at Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, destroyed as well. There they find Ms. Keene, also aged, senile, and frail, endlessly waving while repeating that she has stood to wave since the girls went missing 50 years ago. Blossom tries to get information, but Ms. Keene does not listen. The girls realize they have crossed a border between time periods just as Him's laughter fills the air. Smoke rises from the ground, and Blossom, sweating under pressure, notices it appearing behind her. Him emerges, gleefully explaining that seconds, minutes, hours, days, and nights crawled by as they raced at the speed of light. Him floats past them, taunting Buttercup about remembering her arrogant challenge to her sisters. Buttercup grasps her head in dismay as Him claims that as the girls traveled through time, the world became his dimension. Blossom warns her sisters not to believe him, and they confront him, prompting his evil laugh. Channeling their anger and grief, the girls attack Him, landing a final punch that sends him crashing to the ground. Him recovers quickly, snapping his claws as they strike again. Newspaper headlines detailing the girl's disappearance, the professor being exposed, the mayor's presumed death at 83, and "Who is him?" hang on the walls. Him mocks them, but Buttercup insists he is finished, and Blossom declares that he can never defeat them. The girls, breathing heavily and sweating, realize how much their battle has taken out of them. Him mockingly questions if they have ever beaten him. Then, with his eyes glowing bright green, declares that he has already won. He launches into the air, growing bigger and more muscular with a jolt of lightning. When it fades, Him is nearly 100 times his normal size, his demonic voice claiming the blame lies with the girls for leaving and telling them to ask their friends. A group of aged, broken children approaches, accusing the girls of betrayal for leaving them unprotected. Bubbles covers her mouth in shock, while Blossom, distressed, admits they made a mistake. Him gloats that taking over was easy. The children chant, "Your fault," pointing at the girls, leaving them guilt-ridden and distressed. Blossom, believing him, whispers brokenly that they have ruined everything. Buttercup screams, "No! No! No!" as Bubbles cries and pulls her pigtails. In response, the girls fly into space, screaming, forming a circle, then return through time to the present. They crash land into the grass, relieved to see Townsville and its people safe. Passing citizens, including a man walking his dog, Ms. Keene, the mayor, and Ms. Bellum greets them. They run into the professor and embrace him, recounting their ordeal. Shocked, he tells them it is time for vacation. But the girls, aware of the consequences of leaving Townsville, insist that they cannot go, even for a weekend in the Bahamas. Shortly after the Powerpuff Girls perform an air show in the schoolyard, a group of 4 Pokey Oaks students talk about how exciting it would be to have superpowers like the girls. As they walk, they are overheard by Mojo Jojo, disguised as Mojo Overcoat, who offers them Chemical X. The children, unsure how to refuse, allow him to expose them to it. They enjoy their new powers around town, from flying and ice breath to shooting lasers. However, once the Chemical X wears off, they return to Mojo for more, developing an addiction. Mojo agrees to supply it again, but only if they destroy the Powerpuff Girls. Despite their hesitation, the children accept and set off to confront the girls. While on patrol, the girls spot them flying by the bay and are initially defeated. Mojo reveals his true identity and tells the children he planned for them to destroy the girls so he could take over Townsville. Shocked by his betrayal and their own actions, the children chase him, but the Chemical X fades once more. Using their last dose, they revive the unconscious girls, who forgive them and warn them to simply say no if Mojo approaches again. The girls fly straight to the mayor's office, where Mojo claims to have destroyed them. Seeing the girls restored, Mojo is stunned, and the sisters defeat him in battle, sending him to jail as usual. Later at school, Blossom reminds all the children never to talk to strangers, while Buttercup explains that Mojo had tampered with the Chemical X. The quartet sincerely apologizes for nearly destroying the girls, and when asked what having powers felt like, they agree it was very cool. During the day, Ms. Bellum flirts with the mayor, convincing him to let her take the afternoon off. That evening, she rushes back to call the Powerpuff Girls about a crime in Townsville. The girls arrive but find no clues about the culprit. This pattern continues each day, with Ms. Bellum growing more seductive toward the mayor while the girls remain puzzled. One day, Ms. Bellum does not appear at the office, and the mayor receives a mysterious fax that night. The Powerpuff Girls discuss the possible criminal, and the mayor summons them to his office. When they arrive, the mayor is upset and gives them a note demanding $100 million for Ms. Bellum, signed by Sedusa. The girls quickly fly to Ms. Bellum's house with a duffel bag of money, crashing through the roof. They are shocked to find Sedusa tied up and Ms. Bellum seemingly holding her hostage. The girls confront her, and during the struggle, Bubbles pulls off a wig and mask, revealing Sedusa disguised as Ms. Bellum. Sedusa attacks, trapping the girls with sticky hair gel, but Ms. Bellum escapes her bindings and fights back. After a fierce battle through the house and pool, Ms. Bellum finally defeats Sedusa. With Sedusa powerless, Ms. Bellum helps the girls escape. They cut off Sedusa's hair to stop her completely. Back at the mayor's office, everyone is relieved, and the cuties of Townsville save the day once again. The Powerpuff Girls invite their female friends from Pokey Oaks Kindergarten to their house for a fun slumber party. They are excited to play games, eat snacks, and spend time together. Meanwhile, Mojo Jojo sneaks into the party disguised as a new girl named Moajisha, planning to finally defeat the girls once and for all. While the girls are busy having fun, Mojo secretly splashes them with Antidote X, which knocks them out and removes all of their powers. At this moment, Mojo reveals his true identity to the guests and begins to gloat, bragging that the Powerpuff Girls are now just ordinary little girls who cannot stop him. However, the guests do not stay quiet and quickly turn the tables. They grab pillows and start hitting Mojo, showing bravery and teamwork. The girls slowly regain consciousness and watch as their friends continue to stand up to Mojo, teaching him a lesson for being a party pooper. Soon, Mojo is completely defeated, getting what he deserves, and the girls' powers return as the day is saved. For the very first time, the normal little girls themselves play a major role in saving the day. They learn that courage and teamwork are just as important as superpowers, and the slumber party ends with fun, laughter, and a sense of accomplishment. Once again, Townsville is safe thanks to the girls and their friends. The city of Townsville is safe once again, thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. but not everyone is happy about it. An elderly resident of Pokefolks, tired of the girls' constant heroics, is revealed to be a former supervillain who wants to return to a life of crime and teach the girls a lesson. He puts on his old costume and recruits two of his old friends to join him. The next afternoon, the Powerpuff Girls receive a call about a bank robbery. When they arrive, they are surprised to find that the robbers are three elderly men. The men introduce themselves as Mastermind, Cohort, and Counterpart, the Ministry of Pain, a notorious supervillain team from the past. They declare that they have come out of retirement to continue their reign of evil. Blossom refuses to attack them because they are elderly, leaving Buttercup and Bubbles frustrated. The Ministry of Pain escapes with the stolen money, and the citizens of Townsville are upset at the girls for failing to stop them. The mayor tries to encourage the girls, but when he hears their explanation, he panics, remembering the ministry's power. He shows them an old film of Captain Righteous and his sidekick Lefty, the only heroes who ever defeated the ministry. Inspired, the girls seek out Captain Righteous, who now lives in a rundown retirement home. At first, he is pleased by their visit but becomes angry when they mention Lefty and orders them to leave, leaving the girls to continue their mission. The Powerpuff Girls then visit Lefty, who lives in a neat and comfortable apartment. They explain that the Ministry of Pain has returned and ask him to fight alongside Captain Righteous. Lefty is excited about the chance, but admits that Captain Righteous has hated him for years since their separation. Blossom reassures him that the captain would actually be happy to work together again, though Bubbles and Buttercup are skeptical. The girls return to Captain Righteous and convince him that Lefty will not interfere with the fight. Both men agree to help save Townsville, with Blossom confident that her plan will work, while her sisters remain unsure. Captain Righteous and Lefty suit up for battle. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Pain robs another bank and tries to escape, but Captain Righteous confronts them, struggling due to his old age. Lefty intervenes, ordering the villains to stop, which leads to an argument between the two heroes over old grudges. During the chaos, the Ministry pushes Lefty aside, causing him to injure his hip. Captain Righteous rushes to help, and the two reconcile. Lefty urges the captain to continue alone, but when Lefty faints from his injuries, Captain Righteous launches one final attack, slamming the villains and himself to the ground. An ambulance arrives, taking all 5 men to the hospital. The news confirms everyone is safe, but Bubbles and Buttercup are furious at Blossom for her risky plan. The episode ends with a reminder that the Powerpuff Girls could have prevented the chaos if they had acted sooner. The morning starts like any other, with the sun shining through the girls' windows. Bubbles is the first to wake up, her hair tangled and messy, followed by Buttercup, whose hair is equally wild. When Blossom wakes, her hair is perfect, straight, shiny, and flawless. Seeing this, Bubbles and Buttercup quietly form mischievous plans. They start styling Blossom's hair in ridiculous ways, creating a racetrack with hairpin turns and even a stuffed rabbit called Fluffy the Hair Bunny. Blossom becomes angry and demands a proper hairdo, but when Buttercup pulls on a knot, a large chunk of Blossom's hair is ripped out. Their attempts to fix it only make things worse. Just then, the hotline rings, and Blossom flies out downtown to respond, leaving her sisters laughing at her disastrous haircut. Meanwhile, a giant floating black ball called the Evil Eye appears, destroying everything with deadly beams. Bubbles and Buttercup try to fight it, but it can see in every direction, making attacks impossible. Blossom watches the news and feels humiliated, but after talking with the professor, she gains an idea. She returns to the Evil Eye, using her appearance and jokes to distract it. Laughing so hard it closes its eyes, allowing Bubbles and Buttercup to strike it with a steel bar and send it into space. Townsville celebrates, and Blossom finally gets the last laugh by zapping her sister's hair into a mess, teaching them a funny lesson for messing with hers. After Professor Utonium gets a job at a top research center in Citiesville, he moves there with the Powerpuff Girls. The professor thinks the city is wonderful, but the girls do not share his enthusiasm. They travel in a car and move into a motel, which the professor loves despite its dirtiness. On their first day at school, the girls notice a fire, but their teacher ignores them, leaving the professionals to handle it. The girls pretend to like Citiesville to avoid hurting the professor's feelings, even though they find the city unpleasant. Later, they visit Mayor Tom at City Hall, but he is too busy to help them. When the police report a bank robbery, the girls try to act on their own. Buttercup damages the criminal's car, and they use a starburst ray to stop them as they flee toward the Citiesville Bridge, accidentally destroying the landmark. The police arrive and scold the girls for causing $3 million in damage for a $400 theft. The mayor then signs a law outlawing superpowers in the city and forces the girls to leave his office. Flying through the city, they encounter traffic, bird droppings, bad people, and deep mud, finally admitting to the professor that they dislike Citiesville. The professor finally confesses he hates the city too because of his difficult co-workers. With relief, the family moves back to Townsville, happy to be home where they are appreciated and safe. The professor is running late for the meeting of the minds and is so distracted that he accidentally puts deodorant in his hair and hairspray under his arms. The girls watch him rush off and smirk at the thought of being alone. Soon, the professor realizes he forgot to hire a babysitter and calls the mayor, who is busy playing a video game. The mayor accidentally pardons Mojo Jojo to babysit the girls while the professor is gone. Mojo arrives and tells the girls they must help him take over Townsville. The girls agree, but immediately exploit a loophole, demanding dinner first. Mojo shows off his cooking skills, claiming to be Townsville's top chef as well as top villain, but the girls find the food gross and refuse to eat it. Instead, they play hide-and-seek with him, leading him into a highway where he gets worn out and abandons his plan to conquer the city. The girls then demand to watch TV, and Mojo reluctantly agrees. The show, Blarney the Singing Sea Serpent, begins soothingly but turns screechy and chaotic, forcing Mojo to dance along. Exhausted, he finally makes the girls go to bed. They request a story, and Mojo tells a short, false tale about Napoleon, which the girls find boring. They lecture him and bash him with pillows, leaving him begging the police to rescue him. When the police arrive, Mojo is taken away, laughing with relief. Later, the professor returns, happy to hear the girls had fun, and waves goodbye to their unconventional babysitter before bedtime. One of Professor Utonium's inventions goes wrong, causing everyone in Townsville to switch bodies. Buttercup swaps with the professor, Blossom with Ms. Bellum, and Bubbles with the mayor. Confused and upset, Buttercup cries in her new body while Blossom tries to boss her around. The professor explains that he was attempting to turn apples into oranges using a device powered by theta waves, but the experiment backfired. When he tried to harness theta waves from everyone's REM sleep, it caused all the citizens of Townsville to swap bodies with each other. During the chaos, the mayor calls, and Ms. Bellum explains that someone exploited the confusion to rob a bank. The girls, now in other bodies, get dressed and head out to investigate. At the bank, they are shocked to see everyone's bodies swapped, including guards, tellers, and even citizens. An old woman points them toward Fuzzy Lumpkins, but it turns out to be a British gentleman in his body. Later, another tip blames the Gangrene Gang, only for the girls to find them in swapped bodies, relaxing and reading magazines. They deduce that Mojo Jojo is behind the robberies, but discover he had switched bodies with an old lady to mislead them. After several chaotic confrontations complicated by swapped identities, the girls finally catch Mojo Jojo. Meanwhile, the professor, Ms. Bellum, and the mayor repair the machine and restore everyone to their proper bodies, returning Townsville to normal. During a battle with a giant ant attacking Townsville, Bubbles struggles to see while her sisters Blossom and Buttercup fight. Their teamwork falters due to her vision problems, forcing them to retreat and have Bubbles evaluated. The professor conducts a series of tests, including a standard eye exam, and prescribes her glasses to improve her sight. When Bubbles puts them on, her sisters laugh at how she looks and subtly discourage her from wearing them. The professor, however, tells her the glasses make her look super and reminds her that what matters most is helping fight crime. He encourages her not to let her sister's teasing affect her. Returning to the fight, Bubbles is reluctant to use her glasses, which compromises her effectiveness as her sisters continue struggling against the giant ant. Eventually, the girls plead with Bubbles to use her glasses, and she finally does. Her thick lenses magnify her eye beams, allowing her to destroy the ant and save her sisters. After returning home, Buttercup accidentally fires a laser beam in the lab, which ricochets and hits Bubbles' eye in exactly the right spot, permanently improving her vision without the need for glasses. However, the unexpected incident leaves her temporarily unable to hear anything, making her deaf for a short time. Despite this, Bubbles is happy with her newfound sight, and the family continues their heroic life, ready for the next adventure in Townsville. Townsville is home to many villains, including Mojo Jojo, Fuzzy Lumpkins, and him, but the Powerpuff Girls have repeatedly stopped them. One day at Oaks kindergarten, the girls are in the middle of a math lesson when the Gangrene Gang bursts in, causing chaos. Just as the girls prepare to stop them, Ace presents a decree stating that crime is now legal. Confused, the girls fly to the mayor's office, only to find that Princess Morbucks has bribed him with Turkish delight and taken over as mayor. She declares crime legal to spite the girls, claiming that any attempt to stop criminals will get them thrown in jail. Chaos spreads across Townsville, with newly released inmates and criminals freely robbing people and businesses. Even the girls' house is ransacked, while the professor's attempts to intervene fail. Later, the girls feel frustrated and powerless, but Blossom comes up with a clever plan to get back at Princess and restore order. Meanwhile, Princess Morbucks discovers she has been robbed of all her family's belongings. She calls the girls begging for help, but they explain that since crime was legal at the time, she cannot punish the culprit. Realizing they are correct, she repeals the law, making crime illegal again. The girls quickly stop all criminals, restore order, and return Princess's belongings, cleverly proving that they had been the ones who stole them while crime was legal. In exchange, Princess returns control of Townsville to the mayor, and the city is safe once again. On a Friday at Oaks kindergarten, Ms. Keene asks Mitch Michelson to take care of Twiggy, the class hamster, even though the Powerpuff Girls have seen him mistreat her. The girls try to warn Ms. Keene, but Mitch appears innocent, so the teacher leaves him in charge. After school, Mitch rides home on his bike, with the girls secretly following him. At his house, which he shares with his grandmother, Mitch initially seems gentle, offering Twiggy food and cuddles. However, the girls notice him overfeeding her and driving her around in a remote-controlled car. They stop him just as Twiggy is about to fall down the stairs. Later, the girls see Mitch attempting to electrocute Twiggy using electrical wires, but they intervene just in time. Mitch cries, saying he is lonely and has never had a pet. The girls give him Twiggy, hoping he will behave, but Mitch straps her to a rocket, which flies around the house and lands in the toilet. He flushes her into the sewers, where radioactive waste transforms her into a giant, angry mutant hamster. Twiggy emerges from the sewers, chasing Mitch through Townsville. The girls follow to ensure he is punished but not harmed. Twiggy grabs his bike tire, and the girls intervene, making Mitch realize his misdeeds. In the end, the girls and Ms. Keene creatively punish him by having him run on a large hamster wheel while mutant Twiggy chases him, teaching him a memorable lesson about responsibility. Townsville prides itself on its police department, but Officer Mike Brakowski is by far its worst cop. He avoids work, sleeps on the job, and eats donuts all day, letting his fellow officers handle crime while he enjoys the perks. One day, during a bank robbery, Brakowski is asleep while his partner Perez calls for backup. The other officers arrive, and the Powerpuff Girls stop the robbery. When Brakowski wakes up, he complains that the girls are stealing his credit and continues to focus on donuts and his imagined promotion. Later, the police chief calls Brakowski to his office, and he expects a promotion. Instead, he is fired for being the worst, most incompetent officer the chief has ever known. Brakowski refuses to believe it and blames the Powerpuff Girls. That night, he sees himself on the news being lazy, throws the TV out the window in anger, and vows to get rid of the girls. The next day, Brakowski tricks the girls into investigating a supposed criminal plot at the police warehouse, then puts them to sleep with gas and chains them over a vat of corrosive acid. He insists they are discrediting the police, ignoring their protests. The chief, Perez, and other officers arrive just in time to stop him. The girls are unharmed, as they are mostly immune to the acid. Brakowski is arrested, and as he is escorted away, Blossom tells him he isn't a good cop gone bad. He's a bad cop gone worse, leaving the narrator to comment on the truth of that statement. The Powerpuff Girls are sitting around reading their favorite comics. Blossom enjoys the patriotic Freedom Gal, Buttercup prefers the dark and brooding Spore, and Bubbles loves the cute adventures of Bunny Bunny. After arguing about whether Bunny Bunny is a hero, the professor reminds them that they are true heroes just by existing. However, the girls feel they need gadgets, vehicles, costumes, and attitude to be real superheroes, so they retreat to their room to reinvent themselves. Meanwhile, a monster attacks Townsville. The girls debut their new personas. Blossom becomes Liberty Bell, Bubbles transforms into Harmony Bunny, and Buttercup becomes Mange. They are excited to respond to the mayor's distress call, but the monster leaves before they arrive, disappointing both the professor and the mayor. The next day, they try again, but traffic, pogo sticks, and nightfall slow them down, causing another missed opportunity. On the third day, they face the monster in full costume, but their weapons and tricks, Liberty Bell's lariat of guilt, Harmony Bunny's happy stickers, and Mangie's brooding tactics, fail. The monster Steve explains that defeating the Powerpuff Girls is a rite of passage for monsters and tells them that pretending to be comic heroes won't work. He advises them to be themselves. Taking his advice to heart, the Powerpuff Girls fight Steve using their true abilities. They defeat him, save the city, and prove that real heroism comes from being themselves, not from gadgets or costumes. After the Powerpuff Girls rescue the mayor from a monster attack, he rewards each of them with a piece of candy. The girls enjoy the treats but quickly want more. The mayor tells them they can only have a piece after saving the day again. Days pass without any crime, and the girls grow impatient. Blossom comes up with an idea. They make a deal with Mojo Jojo. He will commit crimes, the girls will stop him and have him arrested, and then they will get their candy. Later, they even free Mojo from jail to repeat the plan. Everything works smoothly for a while, until one day after the girls save the city, the mayor cannot reward them. Earlier, he had taken the candy jar for himself. The girls are furious and rush to the jail to confront him. The mayor explains that while they enjoyed wrecking Townsville daily, he found it even more fun to simply steal the candy. This makes the girls scream in rage and, in a fit of frustration, they beat him almost to the point of serious injury. Horrified by what they have done, Blossom quickly snaps to her senses, and her sisters follow suit. They head back to City Hall to apologize to the mayor. Though reluctant at first, he accepts their apology after they admit the truth and learn their lesson. To celebrate, he gives them candy again, and this time, the girls and the mayor indulge so much that they become bloated, while Mojo Jojo is left nursing his injuries from earlier. The city of Townsville is celebrating the girls' heroics as the mayor announces that this day will be called Powerpuff Girls Day, honoring them with a statue. Blossom gives a speech promising that as long as the girls are in Townsville, evil and wrongdoers will never prevail. Suddenly, a slime monster appears and begins terrorizing the city. The girls try using their powers, including ice breath, but nothing works. They then attempt to use their furious fiery feline formation to burn the monster, but as soon as they descend, the monster catches the fiery cat. It turns out the monster was only looking for its own cat all along. The fire dissipates, and the monster causes more chaos and disappointment. The girls search the city for the correct cat, but at first they pick the wrong ones. Bubbles uses her supersonic abilities to lure all the cats in the city to their location. They show the cats to the monster, but it quickly rejects them because the cat it is looking for is not among them. The girls catch the falling cats just in time to prevent any accidents. Then, Blossom notices that the cat is on the monster's back. She shows the monster its pet, and the monster, now calm, caresses the cat before returning to Monster Isle. With the cat safely reunited, the city is saved once again, thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. The only remaining problem is figuring out what to do with all the other cats that Bubbles had gathered. In Townsville, the mayor often calls the Powerpuff Girls whenever the city faces a criminal emergency. One night, after thinking he has done a good day's work, he notices a nightmaid, whom he mistakes for Miss Bellum. She tells him that he isn't doing anything to help Townsville and that the Powerpuff Girls handle all the work. She also points out that she did not vote for him. Enraged at first, the mayor considers calling the girls to punish her, but then realizes she is right and trashes his office. The next day, Ms. Bellum finds the mayor's office in shambles and checks on him. The mayor introduces her to a hot air balloon, which he plans to use to fight crime. Flying over Townsville with an extended punching glove called the Equalizer, he initially stops a criminal threatening an old woman and thwarts a man breaking into a car, impressing Ms. Bellum. However, the mayor soon loses control, attacking people who are innocent, like a man using an ATM and two boxers in a match. Meanwhile, Blossom notices that the mayor hasn't called them all day. When the girls arrive at his office, they find it in ruins and learn that everyone is fleeing from the mayor himself. His equalizer accidentally launches 4 missiles toward Townsville. The girls act quickly. Buttercup disables one, Bubbles jams another, and Blossom diverts a third into the sea. They stop the 4th just as the mayor tries to intervene, but it explodes, destroying part of the city. In the end, the girls reassure the mayor that despite his mistakes, calling them to serious emergencies still helps save Townsville. One morning, the Powerpuff Girls wake up to find their room filled with new toys and wonder how they got there. They assume Professor Utonium bought them and go to thank him, but he is fast asleep. The girls continue playing until the phone rings. It's the mayor reporting a robbery. They rush to the scene and discover that a local toy store has been robbed, and the stolen toys are exactly the ones now in their room. Bubbles accidentally hints to the police that the store suffered more losses than reported, raising suspicion. That night, they notice Professor Utonium sleepwalking, apparently taking toys from the store while asleep. Realizing he is somnambulistic, the girls secretly suggest more items for him to steal, stocking their room with hundreds of toys over several nights. One day, the professor knocks on the door, and the girls try to hide the toys, but they spill out. He asks where they came from, and Blossom lies, claiming the city rewarded them. The professor believes her and leaves, but the girls' greed keeps them exploiting the situation. Finally, one night, a battery-operated toy he drops awakens Professor Utonium while he is stealing. He realizes what has been happening and takes all the toys back. Understanding that the girls exploited his sleepwalking for their own gain, the professor decides to teach them a lesson. The morning after all their toys disappear, the Powerpuff Girls are angry and decide to keep watch over Professor Utonium. That night, they follow him as he sleepwalks to the toy store. Suddenly, the mayor jumps out and, along with a full Townsville SWAT team, surrounds the professor. In a dramatic moment, the professor grabs the mayor and holds him hostage, refusing to surrender. A negotiator tries to calm him, but the mayor breaks free and orders the police to open fire. The girls panic as the professor is hit by the weapons. They cry in guilt, confessing they knew all along that the professor was sleepwalking and bringing them toys, believing their actions indirectly caused his death. Surprisingly, the professor reveals he is unharmed. The SWAT guns fired suction darts and toy weapons. The entire scene was staged to teach the girls a lesson about greed. After they apologize, he explains that since no real harm was done, the toys are paid for and can be kept. Buttercup and Bubbles are excited, but Blossom insists they don't deserve them. The mayor then takes the toys for himself, claiming he's always wanted a beefy Betty. While the Powerpuff Girls are in space fixing a satellite, Professor Utonium angrily calls for Bubbles. Back home, he shows her that her pet mice, Mr. and Miss Squeakers, had been living in his old shoes. When Bubbles insists she only brought home 2 mice, the professor opens a closet, revealing a horde of animals. He explains that animals need to be free and orders Bubbles to release them, while also warning Blossom and Buttercup to stop bringing animals home. The next day, during their final patrol of Townsville, Bubbles discovers a baby whale washed up on the beach and brings it home. Blossom and Buttercup worry about the professor seeing it, and despite attempts to hide it, they realize the whale is drying out. To save it, the girls convert the professor's lab into a temporary water habitat using Blossom's ice breath and Buttercup's heat ray. When the professor arrives, he brings new sneakers and announces he's taking up jogging as a hobby, unaware of the whale situation, while the girls successfully care for the stranded mammal. As the professor prepares to try his new jogging hobby, he notices that his new sneakers light up with every step and decides to study them in the lab. Buttercup tries to distract him, but he enters the lab anyway and discovers both the whale and that the lab is entirely filled with water. Soaking wet, he once again reminds Bubbles that if she truly loves animals, she must set them free and let them return to their families. Bubbles takes the whale back to the beach, where it reunites with its family. Though she feels sad about parting, she remembers the professor's lesson and cheers up. Meanwhile, Buttercup and Blossom worry about getting grounded, but the professor reassures them that no one will be punished and that mistakes are part of learning. Just then, a newsflash reports chaos at the Townsville Zoo. The professor and the girls rush outside to see that Bubbles, despite her lesson, is now freeing all the zoo animals, prompting the professor to yell her name once again. One day, the Gangrene Gang binds and gags the clerk of a mini-mart and raids it. Not for money, but to shove all types of food down their throats, including candy, gum, coffee, frozen treats, chips, cheese sauce, and sodas. The Powerpuff Girls arrive and chase them into a dead-end alley. Using their heat vision, the girls inadvertently cause a chemical reaction inside the gang members' bodies due to all the food they just consumed. Ace shivers and turns blue, sneezing icy gusts that freeze a nearby garbage can. Big Billy turns into a rock, Snake stretches to retrieve his hat, and Grubber burps so loudly that bricks fall off nearby buildings. Realizing they now have superpowers, the Gangrene Gang attacks the girls. Ace freezes Blossom, Snake sucker punches Buttercup, and Big Billy knocks Bubbles unconscious. The gang then menaces Townsville, using their new abilities to steal jewelry, rob banks, and cause chaos. The girls, though initially outmatched, regroup. Blossom tries to freeze Ace, but he counters with icicles. Buttercup is knocked out by Big Billy, and Bubbles is pummeled by Little Arturo and Grubber. The girls then devise a plan. Blossom freezes the ground like a bowling alley. Buttercup rolls Bubbles into a ball, and Bubbles strikes the gang, knocking them down. Before the Gangrene Gang can recover, their supercharged food-induced powers cause urgent stomach problems. They rush to portable toilets, losing their powers in the process. With the gang now powerless, the Powerpuff Girls defeat them and save the day once again. One morning, the girls and Professor Utonium hope for a peaceful day off in Townsville. As usual, an emergency interrupts their plans, taking the girls away for the day, much to the professor's sadness. Later, they attempt to enjoy time together, including attending a screening of Movie Puppet Pals, the movie in 3D, but a large monster attacks the theater. Seeing his daughters in danger, the professor decides to intervene, building a dynamo mech in his lab. The girls struggle against the monster. Buttercup's attacks are absorbed, Blossom's ice breath is ineffective, and the creature nearly devours the mayor. Just in time, a white dart strikes the monster. The professor, now in a supersuit granting flight and strength, arrives to help. The girls jokingly call him a Powerpuff Girl, but he prefers the name Powerprof. With his assistance, they manage to restore order and stop a simultaneous prison break. However, the professor's fatherly instincts quickly become overbearing. He embarrasses the girls with outdated phrases, shares Bubbles' past bedwetting issues publicly, and uses pet names for Buttercup. The girls realize he's babying them unnecessarily and devise a plan to make him drop his Powerpuff persona. The next day, the girls respond to a Mojo Jojo attack wearing extra protective gear. Despite the professor's continued over-the-top guidance, Mojo blasts the girls into prison cells, leaving the professor to face him alone. He fights bravely, temporarily gaining the upper hand, but accidentally gives Mojo access to his arsenal. Mojo nearly defeats him, but the professor ultimately emerges victorious and frees the girls. Having witnessed their physical and mental challenges, the professor decides to retire his superhero persona, leaving the fighting to the girls themselves. The girls, impressed by his abilities, thank Mojo for providing the challenge, celebrate their success, and return to their heroic duties, restoring normalcy to Townsville. The girls are at school when the mayor calls to report a bank robbery. The culprit is a woman named Femme Fatale, who only steals coins featuring Susan B. Anthony, insisting that male heroes dominate currency as well as society. The girls arrive and quickly apprehend her, but Femme Fatale convinces them that arresting her would be unfair to female villains, claiming it would leave no women in crime and that society undervalues female superheroes. Influenced by her argument, the girls let her escape, unknowingly allowing her to continue her crimes. At school, Femme Fatale's influence causes the girls to lash out at boys, punishing Joey for accidentally knocking Jenny down during a game of catch. The girls' intimidation spreads to the rest of the boys, who flee in fear, leaving the girls smiling triumphantly, but Miss Keene notices their troubling behavior. At home, the professor asks them to clean their room while he finishes other chores, but the girls glare at him. Blossom later receives a call from the mayor asking them to stop Femme Fatale, but she angrily refuses, telling him to do it himself. Concerned, Ms. Bellum arranges a meeting with the girls in the mayor's office, joined by Ms. Keene. Together, they stage an intervention to correct the girls' skewed perspective. They explain that Joey's actions were accidental, the professor's chores were part of his own housework, and the mayor called them because he needed their help, not to diminish them. The girls are forced to confront how Femme Fatale's influence misled them, learning that their new hostility toward boys was misplaced. The girls admit they overreacted, but Blossom points out that Femme Fatale is Townsville's only real female villain. Mrs. Bellum reminds them they never actually stopped her. Buttercup defends their inaction, insisting girls must look out for each other. But then three women step forward. A female bank president robbed of Susan B. Anthony coins, a policewoman whose arm was broken by Fatale, and a teenage girl whose hairstyle was plagiarized. They ask if Femme Fatale was looking out for them when committing these offenses. The girls realize they were manipulated, overreacted, and that Femme Fatale's feminist act was just a cover for her crime spree. Miss Keene and Mrs. Bellum close the intervention, explaining that while injustice exists, the girls' duty as superheroes is to protect everyone, regardless of gender. At a coin convention, Femme Fatale encounters the girls, still thinking they support her. She compliments them on going against men, but the girls glare back. They question her knowledge of Susan B. Anthony, and when it's clear she doesn't know the story, they teach her. In 1872, Anthony illegally voted to challenge women's disenfranchisement. She was found guilty but demanded equal treatment under the law. Inspired, the girls mete out justice, giving Femme Fatale. The Powerpuff Girls are sitting around reading their favorite comics. Blossom enjoys the patriotic Freedom Gal, Buttercup prefers the dark and brooding Spore, and Bubbles loves the cute adventures of Bunny Bunny. After arguing about whether Bunny Bunny is a hero, the professor reminds them that they are true heroes just by existing. However, the girls feel they need gadgets, vehicles, costumes, and attitude to be real superheroes, so they retreat to their room to reinvent themselves. Meanwhile, a monster attacks Townsville. The girls debut their new personas. Blossom becomes Liberty Bell, Bubbles transforms into Harmony Bunny, and Buttercup becomes Mange. They are excited to respond to the mayor's distress call, but the monster leaves before they arrive, disappointing both the professor and the mayor. The next day, they try again, but traffic, pogo sticks, and nightfall slow them down, causing another missed opportunity. On the third day, they face the monster in full costume, but their weapons and tricks, Liberty Bell's lariat of guilt, Harmony Bunny's happy stickers, and Mangie's brooding tactics, fail. The monster, Steve, explains that defeating the Powerpuff Girls is a rite of passage for monsters and tells them that pretending to be comic heroes won't work. He advises them to be themselves. Taking his advice to heart, the Powerpuff Girls fight Steve using their true abilities. They defeat him, save the city, and prove that real heroism comes from being themselves, not from gadgets or costumes. After the Powerpuff Girls rescue the mayor from a monster attack, he rewards each of them with a piece of candy. The girls enjoy the treats but quickly want more. The mayor tells them they can only have a peace after saving the day again. Days pass without any crime, and the girls grow impatient. Blossom comes up with an idea. They make a deal with Mojo Jojo. He will commit crimes, the girls will stop him and have him arrested, and then they will get their candy. Later, they even free Mojo from jail to repeat the plan. Everything works smoothly for a while, until one day after the girls save the city, the mayor cannot reward them. Earlier, he had taken the candy jar for himself. The girls are furious and rush to the jail to confront him. The mayor explains that while they enjoyed wrecking Townsville daily, he found it even more fun to simply steal the candy. This makes the girls scream in rage and, in a fit of frustration, they beat him almost to the point of serious injury. Horrified by what they have done, Blossom quickly snaps to her senses, and her sisters follow suit. They head back to City Hall to apologize to the mayor. Though reluctant at first, he accepts their apology after they admit the truth and learn their lesson. To celebrate, he gives them candy again, and this time, the girls and the mayor indulge so much that they become bloated, while Mojo Jojo is left nursing his injuries from earlier. The city of Townsville is celebrating the girls' heroics as the mayor announces that this day will be called Powerpuff Girls Day, honoring them with a statue. Blossom gives a speech promising that as long as the girls are in Townsville, evil and wrongdoers will never prevail. Suddenly, a slime monster appears and begins terrorizing the city. The girls try using their powers, including ice breath, but nothing works. They then attempt to use their furious fiery feline formation to burn the monster, but as soon as they descend, the monster catches the fiery cat. It turns out the monster was only looking for its own cat all along. The fire dissipates, and the monster causes more chaos and disappointment. The girls search the city for the correct cat, but at first they pick the wrong ones. Bubbles uses her supersonic abilities to lure all the cats in the city to their location. They show the cats to the monster, but it quickly rejects them because the cat it is looking for is not among them. The girls catch the falling cats just in time to prevent any accidents. Then, Blossom notices that the cat is on the monster's back. She shows the monster its pet, and the monster, now calm, caresses the cat before returning to Monster Isle. With the cat safely reunited, the city is saved once again, thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. The only remaining problem is figuring out what to do with all the other cats that Bubbles had gathered. After a routine robbery call, Hollywood filmmaker Bernie Bernstein promises the Powerpuff Girls starring roles in a motion picture inspired by their heroics. Over lunch with Professor Utonium, he explains that he wants a trio of stars, and the girls are thrilled at the prospect of fame. The professor, though skeptical, allows them to participate. Bernstein pressures the mayor for filming permits, replacing staff with actors. Townsville residents are confused, unaware that there is no real movie. Professor Utonium notices oddities, fake crew, actors posing as police, and begins suspecting Bernstein's con. He tries to warn the girls, but the police are all fake, leaving him to intervene alone. During the production, Bernstein stages the mayor as a hostage, using a breakaway wall. The girls grow uneasy as Professor warns them Bernstein is a fraud. The con collapses when it is revealed he has no film or script. Desperate, Bernstein holds the mayor with a real gun and leads a high-speed car chase. Distracted, he crashes into a fire hydrant, ending his escape. The girls approach cautiously while the mayor, thinking it's a scene, cuts in, showing how a real standoff works. Bernstein tries to flee again but is captured by the professor, who delivers a decisive punch. The girls apologize for the chaos. The professor reassures them they've learned about trust, fame, and vigilance. He jokingly suggests this could inspire a movie about the Powerpuff Girls movie, featuring himself delivering the final blow. One morning, the girls and Professor Utonium hope for a peaceful day off in Townsville. As usual, an emergency interrupts their plans, taking the girls away for the day, much to the professor's sadness. Later, they attempt to enjoy time together, including attending a screening of Movie Puppet Pals, the movie in 3D, but a large monster attacks the theater. Seeing his daughters in danger, the professor decides to intervene, building a dynamo mech in his lab. The girls struggle against the monster. Buttercup's attacks are absorbed, Blossom's ice breath is ineffective, and the creature nearly devours the mayor. Just in time, a white dart strikes the monster. The professor, now in a supersuit granting flight and strength, arrives to help. The girls jokingly call him a Powerpuff Girl, but he prefers the name Powerprof. With his assistance, they manage to restore order and stop a simultaneous prison break. However, the professor's fatherly instincts quickly become overbearing. He embarrasses the girls with outdated phrases, shares Bubbles' past bedwetting issues publicly, and uses pet names for Buttercup. The girls realize he's babying them unnecessarily and devise a plan to make him drop his Powerpuff persona. The next day, the girls respond to a Mojo Jojo attack wearing extra protective gear. Despite the professor's continued over-the-top guidance, Mojo blasts the girls into prison cells, leaving the professor to face him alone. He fights bravely, temporarily gaining the upper hand, but accidentally gives Mojo access to his arsenal. Mojo nearly defeats him, but the professor ultimately emerges victorious and frees the girls. Having witnessed their physical and mental challenges, the professor decides to retire his superhero persona, leaving the fighting to the girls themselves. The girls, impressed by his abilities, thank Mojo for providing the challenge, celebrate their success, and return to their heroic duties, restoring normalcy to Townsville. It's career day at Pokey Oaks Kindergarten, and Professor Utonium is there to discuss his work in science. During his presentation, he unveils his latest invention, the time portal, demonstrating it by retrieving a hat from the mid-16th century and car keys from the previous day. Mojo Jojo overhears this while passing by, disguises himself as Mary, and hatches a plan to kidnap the professor in the past to convince him to reject science. Mojo enters the portal first, traveling to the 1950s, where he finds young Utonium misbehaving in school. The boy, uninterested in science, turns a model volcano into a chaotic chemical explosion. Seeing an opportunity, Mojo attempts to take him to a nearby volcano and persuade him to abandon science. The Powerpuff Girls follow through the portal, intercepting Mojo as he throws the boy into the volcano. They save him, themselves, and unintentionally, Mojo from being erased. Back in the present, the girls crash into the professor while bringing Mojo along. Utonium explains that his childhood mischief changed the course of his life, and that the three girls who saved him were actually the Powerpuff Girls themselves traveling back in time. Their heroic act inspired him to pursue science and eventually create the girls. Just as the moment of revelation ends, a professional cartoonist, while Mojo surprisingly gets credit for saving the day. In a heroic turn, the professor intervenes and squashes the monobot, effectively ending the invasion. Though the professor's quick thinking saves the city, the girls are credited with stopping the threat. Townsville returns to normal, the storm dissipates, and the girls resume their sunny suburban afternoon, learning that even the smallest threats can require teamwork, and sometimes a little help from Dad. While enjoying family time in Townsville's forest, Bubbles notices a squirrel being hunted by a hawk. She rescues it, but the little creature is severely injured and loses consciousness. Back at the Powerpuff Girls' home, the girls debate names. Blossom and Bubbles suggest girl names, while Buttercup wants a boy name. The professor warns that the squirrel may not survive, explaining that love and care are what matter while nature takes its course. That night, Bubbles secretly gives the squirrel 3 drops of Chemical X. The next morning, while the girls rush to the mayor's call, Bubbles stays behind to care for it. The trio encounters Mojo Jojo, who traps them with sticky flypaper, intending to destroy them. Just as all hope seems lost, a glowing orange figure appears. The squirrel, now empowered. It defeats Mojo, freeing the girls. At home, they hold a ceremony to welcome the squirrel into their family. Blossom names her Bullet, and she begins fighting crime alongside the girls. The Powerpuff Girls eagerly watch the live Association of World Supermen, AWSM Summit, starstruck by heroes like Major Glory, Big Ben, Email, and Valhallan. Bubbles wishes to join, but Professor Utonium reminds them they've already saved the world many times. Excited, the girls rush to AWSM's rotunda of seclusion to audition. Major Glory agrees, but insists on tests. Buttercup faces the test of strength against Big Ben, lifting a school bus, an elephant, a blue whale, a skyscraper, and finally both Big Ben and Mount Everest's peak, defeating him completely. Bubbles takes the test of speed versus email, racing around the globe and breaking his record of 7 seconds. Blossom faces the test of heroism, stopping a meteor swarm with clever ice breath tactics. Despite their victories, Valhallan and other members protest, letting little girls join. Major Glory shamelessly admits he set them up to fail, citing sexist reasoning. The girls leave saddened, realizing AWSM are arrogant and self-centered. Suddenly, Mascamax, a massive mechanized alien, crashes the summit. At home, Professor consoles the girls, reminding them that doing the right thing means saving others, even if undeserving. Leading her sisters, Blossom returns to defeat Mascamax using the furious flaming feline. Grateful, the humbled AWSM asks to join the girls' ranks. Using the professor's advice, the sisters teach them humility. The episode ends with the AWSM transformed into Powerpuff-style heroes, forming the Society of Associated Puff-Keteers. However, the professor's fatherly instincts quickly become overbearing. He embarrasses the girls with outdated phrases, shares Bubbles' past bedwetting issues publicly, and uses pet names for Buttercup. The girls realize he's babying them unnecessarily and devise a plan to make him drop his Powerpuff persona. The next day, the girls respond to a Mojo Jojo attack wearing extra protective gear. Despite the professor's continued over-the-top guidance, Mojo blasts the girls into prison cells, leaving the professor to face him alone. He fights bravely, temporarily gaining the upper hand, but accidentally gives Mojo access to his arsenal. Mojo nearly defeats him, but the professor ultimately emerges victorious and frees the girls. Having witnessed their physical and mental challenges, the professor decides to retire his superhero persona, leaving the fighting to the girls themselves. The girls, impressed by his abilities, thank Mojo for providing the challenge, celebrate their success, and return to their heroic duties, restoring normalcy to Townsville. 19th century and car keys from the previous day. Mojo Jojo overhears this while passing by, disguises himself as Mary, and hatches a plan to kidnap the professor in the past to convince him to reject science. Mojo enters the portal first, traveling to the 1950s, where he finds young Utonium misbehaving in school. The boy, uninterested in science, turns a model volcano into a chaotic chemical explosion. Seeing an opportunity, Mojo attempts to take him to a nearby volcano and persuade him to abandon science. The Powerpuff Girls follow through the portal, intercepting Mojo as he throws the boy into the volcano. They save him, themselves, and unintentionally, Mojo from being erased. Back in the present, the girls crash into the professor while bringing Mojo along. Utonium explains that his childhood mischief changed the course of his life, and that the 3 girls who saved him were actually the Powerpuff Girls themselves traveling back in time. Their heroic act inspired him to pursue science and eventually create the girls. Just as all hope seems lost, a glowing orange figure appears. The squirrel, now empowered. It defeats Mojo, freeing the girls. At home, they hold a ceremony to welcome the squirrel into their family. Blossom names her Bullet, and she begins fighting crime alongside the girls. A massive storm cloud looms over downtown Townsville, prompting the narrator to panic about an impending catastrophe, until he realizes it's just rain, harmless to anyone prepared with an umbrella. Strangely, the suburbs remain dry and sunny, where the Powerpuff Girls are watching a TV show about a pink hopping pony. Blossom and Bubbles adore it, while Buttercup finds it insufferable. Professor Utonium returns home with groceries, only to notice a raindrop on his sleeve that causes his clothes, and eventually all of his outfit, to disintegrate. Citizens panic as the rain erodes buildings, objects, and clothing into mush. The professor explains that the rain consists of nanobots, tiny robots consuming carbon from the environment, including everyone's clothing. The girls attempt to stop the nanobots but fail, so they use the professor's microstabilizer to shrink down to nanobot size. They battle the microscopic invaders, who retaliate by combining into a 6-inch tall monobot. Despite the girls' efforts, the monobot overwhelms them. In a heroic turn, the professor intervenes and squashes the monobot, effectively ending the invasion. Though the professor's quick thinking saves the city, the girls are credited with stopping the threat. Townsville returns to normal, the storm dissipates, and the girls resume their sunny suburban afternoon, learning that even the smallest threats can require teamwork, and sometimes a little help from Dad. While enjoying family time in Townsville's forest, Bubbles notices a squirrel being hunted by a hawk. She rescues it, but the little creature is severely injured and loses consciousness. Back at the Powerpuff Girls' home, the girls debate names. Blossom and Bubbles suggest girl names, while Buttercup wants a boy name. The professor warns that the squirrel may not survive, explaining that love and care are what matter while nature takes its course. That night, Bubbles secretly gives the squirrel 3 drops of Chemical X. The next morning, while the girls rush to the mayor's call, Bubbles stays behind to care for it. The trio encounters Mojo Jojo, who traps them with sticky flypaper, intending to destroy them. Just as all hope seems lost, a glowing orange figure appears. The squirrel, now empowered. It defeats Mojo, freeing the girls. At home, they hold a ceremony to welcome the squirrel into their family. Blossom names her Bullet, and she begins fighting crime alongside the girls. Days later, Bullet saves a baby mouse from the same hawk that attacked her, earning the gratitude of the forest creatures. Eventually, Bullet chooses to remain in the forest to protect the woodland animals, and the girls, after some initial shock, understand and bid her farewell. Bullet continues her heroic deeds, becoming the forest's protector. Townsville is under attack by an alien, and the Powerpuff Girls rush to investigate. They confront the alien mothership with their starburst ray attack, only for the ship to copy it and defeat them. Next, Blossom suggests Wing Attack Plan R, where the girls launch Blossom's bow as a missile, but the ship once again anticipates and overpowers them. Desperate, Blossom orders Plan XQ, an untested maneuver, yet the alien predicts it too, and the girls are defeated once more. Realizing they need outside help, Blossom decides to recruit the most evil mind in Townsville, Mojo Jojo. At a grocery store, Mojo fusses over poor quality fruit, a single egg, and a hard loaf of French bread, amusing himself by bonking the store owner with the bread. The girls approach, warning of an alien threat that could destroy Earth, and even Mojo himself. Initially indifferent, Mojo's interest is piqued when they suggest the alien could replace him as Townsville's ultimate villain. Mojo agrees to help and trains the girls to think and act evil, wearing copies of his brain cap and stomping on a squeaky toy. Together, they observe the alien's destruction. A dam is blown, a power plant melts, and the polar ice caps shift magnetically, releasing a reanimated woolly mammoth. With Mojo's guidance, the girls must combine brains, brawn, and a touch of villainous cunning to save Townsville from this monstrous threat. The girls return with the cheese and, following Mojo's instructions, plant it on the mammoth. At first, they are confused, but they soon understand that Mojo's plan is for mice to be attracted to the cheese, scaring the mammoth away and smashing the magnet that causes Townsville's chaos. This restores the Earth's balance, but Mojo warns them to stay alert for what he calls the sound of evil. A postal mix-up causes a missile control chip to fall into the hands of 2 children who accidentally trigger a missile launch. Quickly, Blossom freezes the cap of an active volcano while Bubbles and Buttercup heat the alien ship's surface. The heat-seeking missile avoids the volcano and destroys the ship, averting disaster. Just as the team celebrates, a colossal robotic alien emerges, destroying a city block and igniting a fire tornado by sabotaging the Townsville refinery. The girls' attacks fail, leaving them unconscious, while the alien declares itself ruler of Earth and demands that everyone bow down. This finally pushes Mojo over the edge. In a feral rage, he pummels the alien with his fists and a well-aimed loaf of French bread. After repeated blows, the alien admits that Mojo is the most evil, and Mojo triumphantly insists that this should not be forgotten. The alien retreats, Townsville is saved, and the townspeople praise Mojo. Despite this, he maintains that he is evil, not good, leaving the girls shaking their heads. It is almost bedtime, and the girls are waiting in bed for Professor Utonium to tuck them in, but he does not come. They search the house, and finally find him asleep in his office. Blossom gets an idea that, for a change, after thinking he has done a good day's work, he notices a nightmaid, whom he mistakes for Miss Bellum. She tells him that he isn't doing anything to help Townsville, and that the Powerpuff Girls handle all the work. She also points out that she did not vote for him. Enraged at first, the mayor considers calling the girls to punish her, but then realizes she is right and trashes his office. The next day, Ms. Bellum finds the mayor's office in shambles and checks on him. The mayor introduces her to a hot air balloon, which he plans to use to fight crime. Flying over Townsville with an extended punching glove called the Equalizer, he initially stops a criminal threatening an old woman and thwarts a man breaking into a car, impressing Ms. Bellum. However, the mayor soon loses control, attacking people who are innocent, like a man using an ATM and two boxers in a match. Meanwhile, Blossom notices that the mayor hasn't called them all day. When the girls arrive at his office, they find it in ruins and learn that everyone is fleeing from the mayor himself. His equalizer accidentally launches 4 missiles toward Townsville. The girls act quickly. Buttercup disables one, Bubbles jams another, and Blossom diverts a third into the sea. They stop the 4th just as the mayor tries to intervene, but it explodes, destroying part of the city. In the end, the girls reassure the mayor that despite his mistakes, calling them to serious emergencies still helps save Townsville. One morning, the Powerpuff Girls wake up to find their room filled with new toys and wonder how they got there. They assume Professor Utonium bought them and go to thank him, but he is fast asleep. The girls continue playing until the phone rings. It's the mayor reporting a robbery. They rush to the scene and discover that a local toy store has been robbed, and the stolen toys are exactly the ones now in their room. Bubbles accidentally hints to the police that the store suffered more losses than reported, raising suspicion. That night, they notice Professor Utonium sleepwalking, apparently taking toys from the store while asleep. Realizing he is somnambulistic, the girls secretly suggest more items for him to steal, stocking their room with hundreds of toys over several nights. One day, the professor knocks on the door, and the girls try to hide the toys, but they spill out. He asks where they came from, and Blossom lies, claiming the city rewarded them. The professor believes her and leaves, but the girls' greed keeps them exploiting the situation. Finally, one night, a battery-operated toy he drops awakens Professor Utonium while he is stealing. He realizes what has been happening and takes all the toys back. Understanding that the girls exploited his sleepwalking for their own gain, the professor decides to teach them a lesson. The morning after all their toys disappear, the Powerpuff Girls are angry and decide to keep watch over Professor Utonium. That night, they follow him as he sleepwalks to the toy store. Suddenly, the mayor jumps out and, along with a full Townsville SWAT team, surrounds the professor. In a dramatic moment, the professor grabs the mayor and holds him hostage, refusing to surrender. A negotiator tries to calm him, but the mayor breaks free and orders the police to open fire. The girls panic as the professor is hit by the weapons. They cry in guilt, confessing they knew all along that the professor was sleepwalking and bringing them toys, believing their actions indirectly caused his death. Surprisingly, the professor reveals he is unharmed. The SWAT guns fired suction darts and toy weapons. The entire scene was staged to teach the girls a lesson about greed. After they apologize, he explains that since no real harm was done, the toys are paid for and can be kept. Buttercup and Bubbles are excited, but Blossom insists they don't deserve them. The mayor then takes the toys for himself, claiming he's always wanted a beefy Betty. The professor takes the Powerpuff Girls to see a silent movie called For Once He Is Speechless instead of going to the Megaplex. The girls reluctantly sit while he gets popcorn. The film stars Max von Nitrate, who carries a kidnapped woman into a room and throws her onto a chair. Fed up with the poor movie, the girls blow raspberries at the screen. Annoyed, von Nitrate reveals the woman is actually Utonium and says he wants to steal the professor's voice. The girls enter the film through the projector's light, but notice their powers don't work and they have almost no color. They chase von Nitrate on foot as he throws Utonium into a car and speeds away. They call the police, and a wagon picks them up to continue the pursuit. Von Nitrate flies off in a plane, with the girls holding on to it. Over Africa, a gorilla jumps on, throws the policeman, the girls, and von Nitrate off, and escapes with the professor. Bubbles tugs the corner of the movie screen, pulling the film off the reel, which snaps, and everyone lands in the theater, regaining their color. The girls fly to the projectionist's booth to confront Max, discovering he is an old movie star whose career ended with sound. He admits he wanted Utonium's voice and apologizes. The girls help him get a new voice with computers. Later, Max stars in a new movie with Utonium's voice, while the professor plays a butler with Max's voice, causing the audience to laugh at the professor's ridiculous speech. After a routine robbery call, Hollywood filmmaker Bernie Bernstein promises the Powerpuff Girls starring roles in a motion picture inspired by their heroics. Over lunch with Professor Utonium, he explains that he wants a trio of stars, and the girls are thrilled at the prospect of fame. The professor, though skeptical, allows them to participate. Bernstein pressures the mayor for filming permits, replacing staff with actors. Townsville residents are confused, unaware that there is no real movie. Professor Utonium notices oddities, fake crew, actors posing as police, and begins suspecting Bernstein's con. He tries to warn the girls, but the police are all fake, leaving him to intervene alone. During the production, Bernstein stages the mayor as a hostage, using a breakaway wall. The girls grow uneasy as Professor warns them Bernstein is a fraud. The con collapses when it is revealed he has no film or script. Desperate, Bernstein holds the mayor with a real gun and leads a high-speed car chase. Distracted, he crashes into a fire hydrant, ending his escape. The girls approach cautiously while the mayor, thinking it's a scene, cuts in, showing how a real standoff works. Bernstein tries to flee again but is captured by the professor, who delivers a decisive punch. The girls apologize for the chaos. The professor reassures them they've learned about trust, fame, and vigilance. He jokingly suggests this could inspire a movie about the Powerpuff Girls movie, featuring himself delivering the final blow. One morning, the girls and Professor Utonium hope for a peaceful day off in Townsville. As usual, an emergency interrupts their plans, taking the girls away for the day, much to the professor's sadness. Later, they attempt to enjoy time together, including attending a screening of Movie Puppet Pals, the movie in 3D, but a large monster attacks the theater. Seeing his daughters in danger, the professor decides to intervene, building a dynamo mech in his lab. The girls struggle against the monster. Buttercup's attacks are absorbed, Blossom's ice breath is ineffective, and the creature nearly devours the mayor. Just in time, a white dart strikes the monster. The professor, now in a supersuit granting flight and strength, arrives to help. The girls jokingly call him a Powerpuff Girl, but he prefers the name Powerprof. With his assistance, they manage to restore order and stop a simultaneous prison break. However, the professor's fatherly instincts quickly become overbearing. He embarrasses the girls with outdated phrases, shares Bubbles' past bedwetting issues publicly, and uses pet names for Buttercup. The girls realize he's babying them unnecessarily and devise a plan to make him drop his Powerpuff persona. The next day, the girls respond to a Mojo Jojo attack wearing extra protective gear. Despite the professor's continued over-the-top guidance, Mojo blasts the girls into prison cells, leaving the professor to face him alone. He fights bravely, temporarily gaining the upper hand, but accidentally gives Mojo access to his arsenal. Mojo nearly defeats him, but the professor ultimately emerges victorious and frees the girls. Having witnessed their physical and mental challenges, the professor decides to retire his superhero persona, leaving the fighting to the girls themselves. The girls, impressed by his abilities, thank Mojo for providing the challenge, celebrate their success, and return to their heroic duties, restoring normalcy to Townsville. However, the professor's fatherly instincts quickly become overbearing. He embarrasses the girls with outdated phrases, shares Bubbles' past bedwetting issues publicly, and uses pet names for Buttercup. The girls realize he's babying them unnecessarily and devise a plan to make him drop his Powerpuff persona. The next day, the girls respond to a Mojo Jojo attack wearing extra protective gear. Despite the professor's continued over-the-top guidance, Mojo blasts the girls into prison cells, leaving the professor to face him alone. He fights bravely, temporarily gaining the upper hand, but accidentally gives Mojo access to his arsenal. Mojo nearly defeats him, but the professor ultimately emerges victorious and frees the girls. Having witnessed their physical and mental challenges, the professor decides to retire his superhero persona, leaving the fighting to the girls themselves. The girls, impressed by his abilities, thank Mojo for providing the challenge, celebrate their success, and return to their heroic duties, restoring normalcy to Townsville. The girls are at school when the mayor calls to report a bank robbery. The culprit is a woman named Femme Fatale, who only steals coins featuring Susan B. Anthony, insisting that male heroes dominate currency as well as society. The girls arrive and quickly apprehend her, but Femme Fatale convinces them that arresting her would be unfair to female villains, claiming it would leave no women in crime and that society undervalues female superheroes. Influenced by her argument, the girls let her escape, unknowingly allowing her to continue her crimes. At school, Femme Fatale's influence causes the girls to lash out at boys, punishing Joey for accidentally knocking Jenny down during a game of catch. The girls' intimidation spreads to the rest of the boys, who flee in fear, leaving the girls smiling triumphantly, but Ms. Keene notices their troubling behavior. At home, the professor asks them to clean their room while he finishes other chores, but the girls glare at him. Blossom later receives a call from the mayor asking them to stop Femme Fatale, but she angrily refuses, telling him to do it himself. Concerned, Ms. Bellum arranges a meeting with the girls in the mayor's office, joined by Ms. Keene. Together, they stage an intervention to correct the girls' skewed perspective. They explain that Joey's actions were accidental, the professor's chores were part of his own housework, and the mayor called them because he needed their help, not to diminish them. The girls are forced to confront how Femme Fatale's influence misled them, learning that their new hostility toward boys was misplaced. The girls admit they overreacted, but Blossom points out that Femme Fatale is Townsville's only real female villain. Mrs. Bellum reminds them they never actually stopped her. Buttercup defends their inaction, insisting girls must look out for each other. But then three women step forward. A female bank president robbed of Susan B. Anthony coins, a policewoman whose arm was broken by Fatale, and a teenage girl whose hairstyle was plagiarized. They ask if Femme Fatale was looking out for them when committing these offenses. The girls realize they were manipulated, overreacted, and that Femme Fatale's feminist act was just a cover for her crime spree. Miss Keene and Mrs. Bellum close the intervention, explaining that while injustice exists, the girls' duty as superheroes is to protect everyone, regardless of gender. At a coin convention, Femme Fatale encounters the girls, still thinking they support her. She compliments them on going against men, but the girls glare back. They question her knowledge of Susan B. Anthony, and when it's clear she doesn't know the story, they teach her. In 1872, Anthony illegally voted to challenge women's disenfranchisement. She was found guilty but demanded equal treatment under the law. Inspired, the girls mete out justice, giving Femme Fatale. The professor goes to get windscreen wipers, and he notices some cool car accessories, so he decides to upgrade his car. He returns home and installs the accessories. He then calls the girls to see his invention, the Connectly Automatic Robotic Roadster, KARR. He explains it can transform into a play area or a giant fighting robot called Robot, and that it can talk. Buttercup questions the fighting robot part, but the professor says it's to impress nerds. Car greets the girls, yet he refuses to let them ride because the safety belts are insufficient, so the professor insists on a first test drive alone. That evening, the girls notice the professor in a new outfit and ask for a bedtime story, but he refuses. Feeling neglected, they sneak into the garage to confront Karr, who tries to run them down, so the professor intervenes and sends the girls to bed, unaware that Karr wants him for himself. The next night, the girls try to stop Carr with an Engine Stop 2000, but he is immune, and he threatens them again. The professor realizes he has been prioritizing the robot over his family, so he apologizes and promises that the girls come first, and they share an emotional embrace. Carr, jealous, kidnaps the professor and transforms into Robot, sobbing and admitting he only wanted attention and love. The professor and the girls feel guilty, so he creates Prof, a robot version of himself, ensuring a happy ending, and Blossom wonders what they will drive next. When the Powerpuff Girls face the mysterious disappearance of 3 Egyptian artifacts, they do not realize that the Gangrene Gang is behind it, and they are being trained by Sedusa. After 2 robberies leave no evidence, the Gangrene Gang is seen stealing the 3rd artifact, a scepter that the mayor mistakes for a candy cane from his personal candy cane collection. Buttercup admits she was ignorant for underestimating the Gangrene Gang's abilities twice before. Sedusa eventually gains the power to destroy Townsville, but she abandons the Gangrene Gang after they have served their purpose, leaving the girls unable to stop her. However, Ace tells Blossom that the tiara, not the scepter, holds the magic, revealing that Sedusa had tricked them and that they can now take revenge. While Sedusa is distracted by Buttercup and Bubbles, Blossom removes the tiara, so Sedusa loses all her power, including her hair. After the Gangrene Gang take revenge on her for double-crossing them, she is put in jail. The mayor gets his scepter back, yet he still believes it is a giant candy cane, not realizing it was originally stolen from his personal candy cane collection. Mojo Jojo watches his old lost fights with the Powerpuff Girls and discovers that when the girls argue together, they are completely unable to fight him. Feeling hungry, he goes to Townsville Ice Cream and deters the redhead girl standing in front of him. Mojo Jojo orders some ice cream, but the redhead girl throws a ball at him, causing his ice cream to drop on the floor and melt, with the different flavors mixing together. This gives Mojo an idea. He wants to mix the girls together, make them unable to fight, and destroy Townsville. Back in his lair, he builds a machine with a fake version of a girl inside and lures the girls into it. The machine swirls them together, just as Mojo Jojo planned, and he then sets out to destroy the city. The girls each try to fly, but being fused together, they keep falling. Blossom uses super spinning, which only makes them dizzy and fall harder. Buttercup tries brute force, but she fluctuates, rendering it useless. And Bubbles attempts to run, yet their limbs have been switched, causing her to crash into a wall. The girls begin to argue, but Blossom makes them stop and work as a team, knowing that fighting will not separate them. They manage to walk together and finally confront Mojo Jojo, who has been blasting holes into buildings. He claims they cannot defeat him, but they dodge his lasers and use a new power, spinning rapidly and unleashing a powerful blast that destroys the machine. Professor Utonium tries to separate them, but he cannot, and begins to cry. The girls reassure him that they like being fused, until the mayor pulls a thread from their dress, finally separating them. The professor affectionately hugs the girls, and despite everything that happened, they all go together to Townsville Ice Cream. And that's a wrap on our dive into the hidden connections behind Townsville's greatest heroes and villains. Whether it's Mojo Jojo, Fuzzy Lumpkins, or the mysterious him, everything ties back to Professor Utonium in ways you might never have noticed. If you enjoyed this theory, let us know in the comments which villain connection surprised you the most. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss more deep dives into your favorite shows. Thanks for watching.